It is an awesome day for a couple of reasons. Number one, and listen, I'm going to be the first to admit, just so everybody knows, and I know it's funny, when you do sports talk radio, they always say when you are away from the studio, and I enjoy being away from the studio for a couple of reasons. Number one, it gives me the opportunity to get out and about and see people and meet people, which is cool. Number two, allows us to branch out and let more people know about the show, which is advantageous. Number three, and most importantly, time away from Eddie, which is good, right? So we get that, and there's a benefit there. two days in a row. Eddie, do you miss me by chance?
No,
Already?
I know you miss me. I know you miss me. It's okay.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But it is 2 days in a row now. We had a lot of fun yesterday at the Indiana State Fair. And thank you so much to the Indiana, of course, Standardbred Association and Harness Racing. It was fun being out there. And somebody asked me today, they said, on Norway, and, did you have the odds for these horses before you were predicting who was going to win? And I said, no. I have the Midas touch. And, Eddie, you actually correctly predicted, I think, two of the races as well. Did you not?
Yes. And then I had second a couple times. And then, the races started going on and on, I kind of tapered off there at the end. So I started out strong, but not finished well.
That's okay. Well, here's the thing. When it comes to, you just mentioned exactly what we hope is not the case for Anthony Richardson tonight, but we'll get to that. But we are live at as opposed on tape, at the Legends Golf Outing, the 107.5 The Fan Golf Invitational. We are at the Legends Golf Course here in Franklin, Ted Bishop's course. It is fabulous, and it is a great day for golf. This is all to benefit the Franciscan Health Foundation and Franciscan Cares, and I want to thank them first and foremost because, number one, as you know, and I talk a lot about Franciscan and just their overall cardiological care and cardiovascular care and the health screenings of heart scans. But today what we are doing is we have a ton of listeners who are out here right now. Mo from Ohio made the drive over, for example. Talked to a ton of guys and gals that are out right now hitting the links and enjoying the golf course. And in doing so, this is all a fundraising effort to benefit Franciscan Foundation. And what they do in terms of the foundation is simply this, and that is that as part of their cancer care program and outreach to benefit people who are, going through the journey of cancer and the cost that comes with that, and the emotional support, the financial support, that all is the work of the Franciscan Health Foundation. So it is a wonderful cause today. We have a silent auction taking place, and that's the other thing that I was going to mention about doing a live radio remote that is the one drawback to it. Sienna is here working in promotions. Joe Koppel is here, I think, working and just hanging out. But we have, Nick's here driving around, and we have all kinds of people here from the radio station. And then I feel terrible, Eddie, because they actually now are going to experience what you do, which is they are forced to sit and listen for 3 hours while I sit here and talk. And I get very self-conscious about that.
What?
You know what
What'd
I mean?
You say? Sorry, wasn't paying attention.
I've warned them the entire time as to what it's going to be like for the next 3 hours. But we are here with you from now until 3 o'clock. JMV joins us at 3. John's out here. JMV is actually putting up some baskets. Ducks is the company that has put up a temporary basketball court as well. And John, who has on his basketball shorts, he is showing off the body from Premier Weight Loss and is putting up some threes and some free throws right now. So there's a lot going on here at Legends, and it is spectacular. Gorgeous day, a little bit warm, but no worries. We got, all the refreshments going, and everybody is out on the links preparing. And I mentioned that John's going to be here at 3 o'clock. Then at 4 o'clock, he goes into Colts pregame mode because it is tonight a game night for the Colts. The wait is over for all of you who are fans of the local football franchise and watching them tonight. And I know that it's preseason, but nonetheless, it is football. And, what is the post that is made every single year? This is the last week between now and up to Valentine's Day where a week without football. The drought is over and the time is here, and it happens tonight between the Colts and the Baltimore Ravens. And we talked about the fact that they had the joint practice sessions, and then, of course, now they had the day off yesterday, and it is game night tonight. And I think a big part of that conversation is going to be the fact of the quarterback play. Understandably so, and there is all kinds of focus and attention on it. And I was just we were sitting here talking about IU basketball, and, just sports in general before we came on today. And, I'm talking to J-Law about it, and we're sitting here chatting, and we were talking about IU and some of the great recruits that Indiana's had over the years and how some of them, and the same is true of Purdue, players that when they came in, there was so much hype. I remember Mike Robinson for Purdue. Glenn Robinson had left, and it's like, well, the big dog's gone, but the little dog's here now, and this guy's unbelievable, and wait till you see him play. He's a top 50 recruit, etc. And he was a fine player, but nothing earth-shattering. Then you have other players that you didn't expect a lot about or hear a lot about, and they turned out to just be fantastic. And the same is true for Indiana. We were talking about Indiana's hyped 1989 recruiting class, and Calbert Chaney was the real prize of that class by the time it was said and done, and he was the least heralded coming in. And yet there were guys that were huge recruits at the time that they signed. I mean, Pat Graham was a McDonald's All-American, so too was Greg Graham, Lawrence Funderburk, and Chris Lawson. Chris Reynolds was in that class, Todd Leary, huge class. And you just don't know what guys are going to pan out and what guys aren't. And it's for that reason during the recruiting process that you can't get too excited. And there is an element of that when it comes to preseason NFL football. No matter what happens tonight, it is not going to be any sort of a lock, stock, and barrel prognostication of what's going to happen in the regular season. Yes, Anthony Richardson may come out on the first drive and hit his first 5 passes, including one of them in stride to Tyler Warren across the middle, and then a deep ball to A.D. Mitchell, and then Jonathan Taylor breaks off a big run, and you're like, here we go, greatest show on turf, bring on the Lombardi. Or Anthony Richardson may come out and oversail his first 2 passes, throw in the dirt on the third, then tuck and run, and assuming that he stays healthy, continue on, and you think to yourself, oh my gosh, hand the keys over to Daniel Jones. There just is, this is going to be tonight, and I say this, listen, I'm excited for it. I'm going to watch it. I know people are pumped up. Mo from Ohio is here, and he's decked out in all of his Colts gear for the golf outing, and I know what it means and the excitement level that people have, but at the same time, it is for the most part a fairly vanilla exercise. And because it's a fairly vanilla exercise, you have to kind of take with a grain of salt what it is that you're going to see, because especially here in preseason game number 1, teams are going to be very, very cautious and apprehensive of what it is, how much they're showing in their hand. Eddie, are you a poker player by chance, Eddie?
No, do not play poker.
Do you know how to play poker? Would you understand anything about poker? How many card games do you play?
I do understand poker. I just don't play it.
Okay, so you watch it on television.
I have watched it.
Remember that was a big thing? That was a big thing. That Chris Moneymaker guy was smoking everybody wearing like orange shielded Oakley blades. So what card games do you play?
Let's see. We've got poker. I haven't played poker, but I understand poker. I play euchre,
okay.
Blackjack.
You're a Hoosier. That makes sense. Yep, okay.
Yep, there you go.
Go fish?
Yep. I didn't know how basic we were getting here. Yeah. King's Corner. I don't know if you've played that one or not.
No. Crazy Eights. You played a little Crazy Eights?
I've played that. Uno. Big Uno guy.
Uno's a good one. But that's not a card game, though. That's like a. I mean, it's a card game.
It is a card game. What are you talking about?
Okay.
You play with cards. It's a card game.
Hold on. No, standard. Well, so too is Password, but that doesn't mean it's a card game, even though you use cards for it. Standard. That's a great. Is Uno a card game? I mean, it is a card game. I get it, but like, what's it's a standard deck of cards card game? It's not a 4 suits card game, right? You know what I mean?
Rummy.
It does use. Rummy's a good one.
Uno is definitely a card game.
Bridge, but it's not a card game. It's a game that utilizes cards.
It's a
but when you talk about it,
go ahead.
I mean, here's the thing. So Uno, if you say to somebody, do you want to play a game of cards? They don't think of Uno. Uno's a game that happens to utilize cards. But a card game means one that is interchangeably used amongst the 4 suits of cards, right?
There are suits, though, technically in Uno, are they not? It's all the colors.
Okay.
Red,
but
blue,
again,
green, yellow, whatever. Other colors you want to use?
There's no Joker, right? There's
well,
no
you've got the
Joker
wild cards. You got
Uno.
the +4s. Draw 2. Skip, reverse.
I mean, it's kind of like Sorry, but with cards, right? I mean, I know it's a game that utilizes cards, but I don't know that it's technically a card game. And by the way, this goes back to kind of, and yes, we're going to get back into the Colts today, and we're going to talk about the fact the Fever played tonight. And we're going to talk a lot about the fact that we're at the golf outing, and it's awesome here, and we'll talk to different people who are partaking. We also have, by the way, Indiana high school basketball lost a legendary figure that will be laid to rest tomorrow, and one of his star players is going to join us at 2 o'clock to take a look back not only on the career of Bill Springer, but also one of their finest moments, and one of the guys that was the star of his finest team will join us as well. But this goes back to, in discussing whether or not Uno is a card game, it goes back to one of the age-old radio debates that I had with, I believe, Mark Dykton, who I just saw. Mark Dykton showed up here with his golf clubs and drove off. He was by himself, oddly enough. But remember when I asked Eddie whether or not PetSmart means it's a mart for pets, or it's you're smart for your pet that you go there?
Yeah, I've never been a part of this discussion.
Okay, where do you lie on this? Where do you weigh in on this? PetSmart, is it a mart for pets with an apostrophe S, or is it you have a smart pet because you've gone to PetSmart?
Well, it doesn't have apostrophe S, Jake. It's capital P, lowercase e, lowercase t, capital S.
No.
Yes.
No, it's all the same size letter with a bouncing ball between the T and the S that can be construed as an apostrophe, or it can be simply seen as a ball bouncing between the T and the S. But in terms of the branding and the signage on the outside of the building, the letters are all the same size. PET is red, SMART is blue, but it's all the same size. And there's a bouncing ball between the two that would appear as though it is saying PetSmart. But they also have, I noticed, a thing that says Pets Hotel, which is PETSHOTEL, as part of their boarding. And so, therefore, I believe that by naming that the Pets Hotel and spelling it with the S, I think they're tipping their hand that, in fact, it is a mart for pets. And it's a Pets Mart.
I think
just like it's a Pets Hotel.
You are incorrect.
So you think it is you're saying it's smart.
If you just simply Google PetSmart, it is capital P, lowercase e, lowercase t, capital S. PetSmart, there is no apostrophe.
Not their branding. If you walk by the outside of the building, it is capital PETSMART, all the same size, with the bouncing ball between the T and the S. And therefore, the debate, is it because the pet and the smart are definitely two different words?
There is no debate. It is pet smart.
Okay.
Not pet smart. It is pet smart.
But what's okay, except for the hotel is Pets Hotel. So if it's Pets Hotel, then it's Pets Mart. Right?
No, we're talking about two different things here, Jake.
They're within the same company, the same branding, same folks. I'm just telling you, for what it's worth. But I'd like to know whether or not Uno, people determine, is a card game, right? Hey, Jake, when you look at the sign on the building, pet is in red, smart is in blue. I get it, but there is the bouncing apostrophe. But there is the bouncing ball that can be construed as an apostrophe.
In your world, yes.
With you. I would side with you, but yesterday when I went in to get cat food, mind you, when I went in there, I noticed the sign on the side that said Pets Hotel, and that's where I believe they actually are throwing that out there to throw you off the scent a little bit, to let you know, no, actually, Pets Hotel, because it's Pets Mart. I think they are tipping their hand, showing their cards, and that's what I was asking you about card games. When you play card games, do you tip your hand or show your card? Because tonight, what we are going to see is whether or not the Indianapolis Colts and the Baltimore Ravens tip their hand or show their cards at all towards the regular season, and I don't believe they will. I think that they're going to run plays for Richardson to just see where his timing is and see where his mechanics are, because the one thing about Anthony Richardson that has been the biggest question mark, and I'm not breaking any news here, I realize, but the one thing about Anthony Richardson that has been the question mark is whether or not the mechanics are there because it's one thing to do it in practice. But when the arrows are flying and everybody's coming in and the pocket's collapsing and the voices are being heard and the footsteps are being felt, that's where you want to know whether or not – and I have not played the quarterback position at a high level. Very few of you listening to my voice have played the quarterback position at a high level. And yes, Carmel versus Ben Davis is a big game. That does not mean that it's the quote-unquote high level of the NFL. But if you talk to people that have played that or have been around managing and deciphering and coaching those who have played that, one of the things they will tell you is that it's one thing to stand and throw a football in the yard or in a practice. But obviously when you're out there and you have to make very quick decisions, and you've got to make those decisions when you don't know, but you anticipate that you have people closing in on you with the eyes in the back of your head and anticipating it, then oftentimes the fury, the nature of that is made up for. You can, what little time you have to prepare yourself for a throw can be offset a little bit or assisted by making sure that your feet are in the right place, that your elbow placement is correct. These are very technical things, I realize. But they are the things, truth be told, that Anthony Richardson has never mastered. And the reason he's never mastered them is because up until this point in his career, he's never had to, because he was more naturally gifted than everyone else. It's like the kid that just naturally knew math and then all of a sudden was airdropped into, as a savant at the age of 14, a Harvard engineering class. Things become a little bit different at that point, and you've got to have a baseline of repetition and a baseline of the most basic fundamentals to fall back on. And he's never had that, but this appears to be the first offseason. This appears to be the first training camp where the things that he was told to improve upon, the things that he was told to work on, that I just mentioned, the mechanics, the footwork, the placement, the elbow, making sure that the elbow is not too high or too low at release point. All of those nuanced things that in all reality, 1% of the population probably to a naked eye can determine and decipher. All of those things are things that to this point in this camp, it appears as though he has taken care of. But this is the ultimate test. And this isn't even the ultimate test because it's not a true given week one where teams are, in fact, hiding their hand and using junk defenses and mask defenses. And that goes into the second realm of the quarterback position at the NFL level, which is recognizing a defense, deciphering a defense, and figuring out what's going to work against that defense. And that's a whole other area. And I'm not saying Richardson doesn't have that intellect by any stretch, but I think to a great extent, Richardson has been able to, just based on his natural gifts, not have to worry about that to this point. And we haven't seen him play with the consistency over the course of an entire season to be able to show that he can do those things. And tonight is the first step in figuring out whether or not he has made that progress, which takes you into then the other guy, which would be Daniel Jones. And, how much Daniel Jones is able to do those things when he's in there. Jones is a guy, Eddie, you tell me if you agree with this. I think with Daniel Jones, it feels at this point like Daniel Jones is the more completed version of himself, and that you have a pretty good idea, a better idea of exactly who and what he is. Mm-hmm. But with Richardson, you have a lot more question marks, but clearly the assumption of a much bigger ceiling. And Jones is probably the safer play, and Richardson is the bigger reward. And I think the Colts would tell you that, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the whole intrigue with Anthony Richardson, right, is that I think the floor is safer with Daniel Jones, as you said, but the ceiling is much higher with Anthony just because of the fact that he has the ability to push the ball down the field. He can make explosive plays with his legs. Not saying that Daniel Jones can't, but I know that defenses are going to have to account more just for Richardson than typically with Daniel Jones. And not to mention, he puts more pressure on the defense vertically than Daniel Jones. So, I would agree with you there for sure.
By the way, you heard this morning, the morning show was out here at Legends as well. This is a legendary golf course. Bob Knight used to do his, I believe this is where, JD would know, this is where Bob Knight did his television show, I believe, right? For the last couple of years that he was doing it, Golf Your Way. Ted Bishop spoke to all the golfers that took to the course earlier, but I heard Kevin asking the question to Ted. The flags that are represented here at Legends in terms of the pro shop, of course, you have an IU flag, you have a Purdue flag, and then there are three kind of random schools Eddie, would you like to guess the 3 random schools, or did you hear the discussion earlier that was taking place?
I did not hear the discussion earlier.
Okay, I'm going to give you hints on the schools, and then I want you, Eddie Garrison, to tell me what schools they are. Are you ready?
Okay.
The first school has a decent basketball program, although it's a non-Power 5 program. They have a player from Pike High School that had a very long and very steady, stable professional career after playing at this school that is roughly a 3.5 to 4 hour drive from downtown Indianapolis. And their mascot is one of the great mascots in all of college athletics because it is very similar to the Syracuse mascot, but instead of an orange, it's just a blob. It looks like a dot candy, which you probably love. What mascot am I talking about? What school?
Oh, I was just trying to figure out what player you would be talking about.
One of the most popular tight ends in Colts history of the last 10 years played at this university.
Oh boy, not Cathedral. Central Michigan.
After Cathedral. Very good guess. No, Western Kentucky. Kentucky.
Hilltoppers.
One of the flags that's flying here. Okay, the next flag. Great college basketball program during my childhood in one of the preeminent college basketball programs of my childhood. As a matter of fact, in the mid-'80s, they were one of 3 schools from their conference to make the Final Four, and their star player, All-American, a left-handed shooter, would later become an Indiana Pacer. Also an Indiana Pacer out of this school, the guy that was involved in the most infamous moment in franchise history for the Pacers. Both played at this university on the East Coast. Go ahead, Eddie.
I initially was going to go with UCLA, but that sounds wrong.
UCLA, incorrect. The most infamous moment in Pacers history would be what? The darkest moment in the history of the franchise.
That would be the brawl.
That is correct. And the main player in the brawl, the main culprit in the brawl would be?
Well, that would be Ron Artest, now Meta Sanford World Peace or whatever.
That's correct, yes. And he played collegiately at what university, which also was home to Chris Mullin?
I actually don't know that answer.
That would be St. John's flag. And then the last flag that's hanging, which is the most curious flag that's hanging, is the Jayhawks of Kansas, the Kansas Jayhawks.
What, no hints? Really? Come on now. I wanted to try to get at least one right.
Well, here's the thing. The hint that I gave earlier for the Kansas one is it's appropriate that it is a flag when considering my academic career because I flagged every class that I took at Kansas. Flag was a term. Did you have that term when you were in school when you would flunk a class? You're like, man, I totally flagged that test because the F looks like a flag.
I never failed a class, Jake, so I wouldn't know.
Okay. Well, you'll get a passing grade tonight. I know you will, Eddie Garrison, in terms of your pre- and post-game coverage of the Indiana Fever. They are in action tonight taking on Phoenix. That game is going to be on WIBC. That is because the Colts and Ravens, of course, will be on this radio station. JMV will have the pregame for that coming up at 4 o'clock. But, Eddie, in terms of the Fever, trying to get back on the right side of things after, and they have played really well. They have won 5 of their last 6, but, of course, that 6th is the game that they lost in Los Angeles, that they came back and made it respectable. But a game and you have this happen from time to time where just everything kind of falls in and the roof kind of caves in on you, and that's exactly what happened to them against the Sparks, but now trying to get it back on the right side of things against Phoenix. And we still, Eddie, are in the Caitlin Clark watch, but as of now, looks like, again, no Caitlin Clark tonight for Indiana.
That is correct, Jake. She's already been ruled as out. It will be her 8th missed game with the right groin injury, her 18th missed game of the season, and I'm still with you that her return will be probably on August the 22nd just because of how things shape up. You have to travel, and there's always swelling that pops up whenever you're injured when you're going from the West Coast back over to the Midwest, and there's not really much time for practice. I don't know the next time, actually. I think the Fever are practicing after the game when they come back home against Phoenix. So that'll be like the first real practice that the Fever have had in probably like a week and a half or 2 weeks, and it'll be interesting to see if she's out there. She's got to be able to stack practices and hopefully get the right treatment following practice, and that there's nothing that comes up after practice as well, swelling or soreness or whatever the case.
Hey, Jake, this was just sent to me. Here's the Internet PetSmart image on their website. I believe Eddie is wrong. Sorry, Eddie. That was just sent to me just moments ago for what that's worth.
I'm
just
right.
Moments ago.
Okay.
So I'm just telling you, they're not. They are all the same font.
It doesn't matter about the sign. Come on now.
I'm telling you, the sign is the same as what they have on the web.
If it was,
I'm telling you,
no, it's not.
It's a mart that belongs to pets and for pets. I that's what I'm going with.
If the
reason I say that,
The S was
What's
a part
that?
of pet. It would be red. It's a part of the smart. Therefore, it's pet
Eddie,
smart.
listen. You know one of the pets that gets their food at the store? Basset hounds, right?
Yes.
Any sort of hound whatsoever. What are they good at? They sniff everything out, right?
Barking.
Okay. Well, what you do is with any sort of a dog like that, if you don't want it to chase you too much, then you try to throw it. What do they say? You're throwing off the scent, right? That's what they're trying to do with you on that. They're trying to throw you off the scent. The other marketing genius they're doing is there was some guy who probably went to Western Kentucky University in the marketing program in 1998 that graduated, was probably making like hourly wage, was an intern. They were sitting around discussing exactly how to brand the company. And he said, you know what? If we actually put in a ball bouncing and make it look like it might be an apostrophe, then there's the possibility that two guys will spend 20 minutes of a radio program in Indianapolis, Indiana, talking about PetSmart 150 times over, even though the Colts are playing that night against the Baltimore Ravens. The Fever are playing, and there's a number of other things to talk about live from a golf outing at the Legends in Franklin, Indiana. And they said, you know what, that sounds great, let's do it. And bada boom, bada bing, here we are. Which means we should probably get back into the Colts-Ravens discussion, which we will do next. Big show lined up for you because Stephen Holder is going to join us 1 o'clock today. Matt Taylor joins us at 1:30, and I mentioned it. Bill Springer, one of the great coaches in Indiana high school basketball history, passed away recently. His service will be tomorrow. A guy that was a great player for him. William Moore will let us know exactly what kind of guy Bill Springer was. That conversation coming up in the 2 o'clock hour. And I anticipate also, because it sounds as though I'm hearing the crowd right now, JMV is putting on a shooting display, even though we're on a golf course, because Ducks has brought out a basket and John has been shooting for, and John's wearing like North Carolina shorts, blue and white North Carolina shorts, which is, kind of cool. But ever since, I don't know if you've noticed this, Eddie, but ever since John has gone through premier weight loss now and all of a sudden looks like Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse, he's just running around all over the place letting everybody know about it, right?
That's like his favorite movie, so why not?
I know, why not, right? All right, we'll come back. We will get back into the Colts and Ravens on a more serious discussion, I realize, including what players might actually be looking tonight to have a good game because suddenly they are feeling competition around them. We'll get into that discussion, and we'll do it on the other side. You're listening to Query and Company here, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. We're at the Legends down in Franklin for the Fan Invitational Golf Outing, all to benefit Franciscan Health Foundation and their work with cancer care, which is fantastic in terms of, obviously you never want anybody to experience the journey of cancer, but it is one that I think most people have had some encounter with, whether it be a family member, whether it be a coworker, whatever it may be. That journey in general is what the Franciscan Foundation helps out in helping people towards from a financial standpoint, an emotional standpoint, all of it. And we are raising the funds necessary for that today, and we thank them for that. A very important mission that puts sports in perspective for certain. But in terms of sports and that perspective, the Colts in action tonight taking on the Baltimore Ravens. And, you just heard Pat Benatar singing about hit me with your best shot in terms of who needs to give their best shot tonight. Still early, and there are not necessarily, position battles that are in any way, shape, or form finalized. But there are some that it is interesting because they suddenly, you see players that have risen up and maybe given more claim than you would have expected in terms of trying to get themselves a role. For example, the center position, and that's one. There are two areas where I 100%, and listen, and I'm looking right now to those of you in the YouTube audience, and thank you for those that are in the YouTube audience.
Are you not going to smile at the camera and pose like you always do? There you go.
Yeah. And this tan yesterday, thank you, from the Indiana State Fair. The tan, I have an electric glow. But I've taken off the sunglasses to look right here and tell you this. My name is Jake Query, and I'm a radio host in Indianapolis from noon to 3 every day, and I'm on point 99.8% of the time, or more appropriately, perhaps 93.5% of the time. When I'm wrong, the new, mature Jake will admit to it. I didn't used to admit when I was wrong about things, partially because there weren't a lot of opportunities for me to have to do so. But now, when I'm wrong about something, I will tell you, what I was wrong about that. And one of the areas where I was wrong is I did think that the center position from the get-go, when this team reported to camp, I thought it was over. I thought Bortolini was your center, and that was that, and it was a slam dunk, and that situation had settled itself out. And I think now we can say that there may be, in fact, a position battle going on, and Danny Pinter perhaps is not necessarily conceding that position just yet. And that's going to be an interesting one because Bortolini had essentially taken all of the snaps or created all of the snaps, been doing all of the snaps from the get-go in camp, but that's altered a little bit now. And so now you have that situation with Danny Pinter there, and I'm curious to see, and today, I don't mean necessarily tonight, but over the course of camp, start watching, especially in the Green Bay game, and especially when Anthony Richardson is there, because I think Richardson is, in fact, unless something really changes here, I think Richardson is your starter. I do. And for that reason, then you get into kind of pitcher-catcher combinations. When I covered the St. Louis Cardinals, Carlos Hernandez was the backup catcher. Mike Matheny was the catcher. He was a great player, and he was as reliable as could be for the Cardinals at the catcher position. But Carlos Hernandez was the backup catcher, and Hernandez was the guy that would catch like every fourth game because there were certain pitchers. Rick Ankiel eventually, even though it became Matheny that tried to work Ankiel through his stuff, but, Matheny was a guy that caught Rick Ankiel, who was a rookie, and then Matheny cut his finger late in the season, and Carlos Hernandez became the catcher, and all of a sudden Rick Ankiel was all over the place. And there was the thought process that it was because of his familiarity with Matheny, and that's who he felt comfortable with. And you get that with certain catchers, especially with knuckleball pitchers and that kind of thing, that they have to go a certain way. And I do think that there is some truth to the fact that if the center position is wide open, then perhaps do you, and we'll talk to Stephen Holder about this coming up at the top of the hour, but does the comfort level and the exchange with said quarterback or the ability, for example, even though Jones also has wheels like Richardson, but I think that Jones's speed in terms of his ability to run the football isn't necessarily the automatic audible. I think with Jones it's more designed run, and with Richardson it's more possibility of run and go with it if it opens up. And so for that reason, if you have that threat of a running quarterback, do you then evaluate at the center position the kind of play that you need in the line if you have players that are pulling more or are able to go in the freelance more? Because I am fascinated. And you folks, if you listen to the show enough, when I've talked to Anthony Costanzo when we've had him on, or when we've had on Joe Wrights or other players, one of the questions I've asked, and maybe it's the biggest neophyte question of all, but one of the questions I always ask about NFL offensive linemen is, do you have to have the understanding and the anticipation of the quarterback tucking and running with it? And how do you know when that's going to happen? If a play is breaking down and the pocket's breaking down, if you are now changing from basically a passing offense into, in that play being a running offense, how do you know when that quarterback's going to go? And some of that may factor in the ability to know and understand and feel that and sense that may be a factor in who exactly you go with at something as elementary as the center position. And it probably is going to be Bortolini, but I think that is one that is still going to be interesting to watch if you are looking for position battles. And then the other is the fact of the secondary, because of the fact, Eddie, we have talked about this, right? The NFL is so fickle. Not for long is what it stands for. And that includes the sentiment of it, because 2 weeks ago, we would have said repeatedly that the defensive backfield was the area that we felt the most comfortable about for the Colts going into camp because of some of the players they went out and acquired. But at the same time now, just based on attrition, because of the injuries to Jalen Jones, the injury to Juju Brents, now all of a sudden you're in a situation where that depth you're going to have to tap into. But that rotation does maybe change a little bit, because a couple of the guys that you expected to be those that were going to be getting snaps are now not available, and that's opportunity for other players to show themselves, right?
Yeah, it absolutely is, Jake. And they made some moves at the back end of that after, the Jalen Jones and Juju Brents injuries. They bring in a couple of different veterans that had familiarity with the system. With Lou Anarumo, now it's just going to be a matter of, is there anybody who steps up? Like Chris Lamons has already been. They bring Chris Lamons back. Samuel Womack's been there within the team. They bring in Trey Herndon, who was formerly with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So there's going to be some questions there. And do they continue to get some standout play from Hunter Wooler at the safety position during training or during preseason play? I'm fascinated to see how many of those guys in the secondary do get, in terms of the starters, do play tonight. It's been speculative at this point that not many defensive starters will play, but most of the offensive starters will. So that'll be something to watch tonight. And do we get any inclination, Jake, based off of this first preseason game, on what kind of, look this Colts defense will have in terms of how they want to play for the upcoming season?
By the way, this from Nick. Hey, Jake. Or actually, he sent this to you, Eddie. Holy hell, Eddie, you must have a headache every day from Query. What? That seems unfair. That seems nitpicking, right? I don't think that's. You don't have a headache from me, right?
No comment.
If anything, you get sore shoulders from all the times I'm patting you on the back, right?
Oh, yeah, okay. Okay.
That's okay. Or do you get sore shoulders from all the times you got to carry me? It's one of those two. James Boyd just came over and has the largest tenderloin sandwich I've seen in quite some time. That looks spectacular. I mean, that looks spectacular.
Jake, by the way.
Spectacular.
Jeremy popped into the YouTube chat right now and said, I called their corporate offices. Eddie, it is Pet Smart, not Pets Smart.
No,
it is Pet Smart.
Interns. I mean, they got interns. You know what I mean? Today,
This is what I'm walking in on?
I don't know if you know this or not, but PetSmart today is actually having their golf outing. They're having their golf outing at the Legends Golf Course of San Diego. and so, therefore, nobody's there, and they had an intern answering the phones. You know what I mean?
James,
like
we were just talking about
you're
the
the only guy
secondary.
back.
Yeah, I know. James, we were talking about the secondary. Is Justin Wally playing tonight? I know he left that joint practice with ice on his knee.
I'm not so sure. They don't have to put out, I believe, like the same sort of injury reports as they do throughout the regular season. And if anything, we'll find out, I think, with some of the – actually, I don't think. During the season, they have an actives list. I'm not so sure that's the case for preseason, so we'll see. But if I had to guess, I would probably say no, just given the fact that, he had to leave practice and couldn't finish it.
Okay, I got another question for James, but we'll let him get to his sandwich first. So he's going to take a bite into – is that a pork tenderloin or a chicken sandwich?
It is pork.
That is a fabulous and huge-looking sandwich from James Boyd. We'll get more from James Boyd in just a second. We'll let him eat his sandwich, and then I've got a couple questions about the Colts before Stephen Holder joins us. 1 o'clock on this golf outing, golf invitational edition of Query & Company, coming to you from the Legends down in Franklin on the Fan. So here's the scene for you at Legends. Matthew's here hanging out. J-Law's hanging out. Everybody, Kevin Bowen is apparently hitting long drives for everyone. JMV is already put up more shots and three-point jumpers than like Steph Curry and John Paxson did in their prime, and is now John just worked his way under the screen, and James Boyd is enjoying his complete acclimation now as a Hoosier by having a tenderloin sandwich. Thoughts on the sandwich?
It's a banger, but I wonder if I'm just saying that because I'm starving. Well, I shouldn't say I'm starving because my grandmother would probably hit me if she was here. You're not starving, you're just hungry, but it's good to me. I like it. But it's also not. Is this like the typical? I heard the pork tenderloin. If you go somewhere, it's like the big.
The one that you have has like thickness. Usually they are a more pressed and wide.
Yeah, because the pictures I've seen is like little bun and they have like all this.
Correct. That's correct. But that sandwich looks very, very good. In terms of tonight, the guy that needs to look very, very good for the Colts because suddenly he might find that his footing is less stable than he anticipated would be who?
Oh, that's a good question. I might go with someone like Sam Womack at cornerback because if you look at the way they have kind of done their cornerback room, they revamped it entirely. He's kind of like the odd man out. But considering the injuries to that room, he started, I believe, 8 games last year. He might be looking at the opportunity like if I don't ball out in this game without Justin Wally in there potentially, without Juju Brents, without Jalen Jones, when am I ever going to prove to these guys I can play? Now, I'm not saying he should play. I'm just saying that he got to be looking at this opportunity like this is my chance.
But Justin Wally, this preseason so far, James Boyd, has been the Justin Wally, like, coming out party, right?
Yeah,
or introduction party, actually.
The other day on Lamar Jackson.
Well, that's what I mean. Like but from the get-go, he has been a guy that people have circled from. You always, every team says this, James. James Boyd, our guest, by the way, you heard him this morning along with Jeff Rickard and Kevin Bowen. Every franchise in the history of the National Football League, when they draft a player, says to anybody that asks, this is a guy that we had targeted. We couldn't believe he was still on the board, etc. And with Justin Wally, I truly did get that feeling, though, that they thought that they really had gotten a player that perhaps had the skill set to be a higher draft, but maybe his size is what held him back. But he's had a very good camp, right?
He has. I think that he's already proven that he's probably going to be a starter, which usually with rookies and position battles, you're always preferencing everything by saying, oh, he might be a starter. Oh, he might get a chance. No, he is a starter. He's gotten starting reps from day one since we've been out there of training camp, and it hasn't dropped off at all unless he's been injured, which is what happened the other day. So other than that, no, I have no question about his role within the defense because to me, he's a third starting cornerback alongside Javarius Ward and Kenny Moore II.
Right. And that's – now the other one that comes into play is you mentioned the play against Lamar Jackson, and we've talked about this, but I wanted to get your thoughts on it. We discussed it yesterday as well, but it's worth going back to. And that is a guy that seemed very confident and mature after the draft when we talked to him, and that means a hill of beans when it comes to actually playing in the NFL.
Right.
But Hunter Wohler so far, I think, maybe was one that didn't jump out at you at the beginning of camp, but at this point looks like he has gained some ground and is not going to be a starter by any stretch. But, James, he looks like a guy that can be a really nice, additional piece for them, maybe a special teams guy that then can give you some insurance at that position. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, I would even go a step further, Jake, and say that he's somebody who's going to get on the field for you. If you go to some of those dime packages, which for those listening means when you have 6 defensive backs out there, I think that he could be one of those 6. And the role that he was kind of playing this past joint practice with the Ravens, late in practice, that is, when they went to their 2-minute drill and the Colts were on defense, they put him at linebacker because he's more rangy and can run and can cover better than perhaps the other linebackers who are more traditional linebackers.
Are we getting more into, James, if you think about basketball?
I like where you're going with this.
If you think about in basketball 15 years, Kevin Durant was – actually, I take that back. And I know people in this town think I'm crazy when I say it, but I will die on this hill, okay? Jonathan Bender was going to be Kevin Durant before Durant. But a 7-foot guy, 6'11", that had range, could put the ball on the floor, all that. That was unheard of in 1999, 2000.
Right.
And at that time, the Pacers, and I can tell you, the Pacers brass, telling us 25 years ago,
Right.
we are moving towards positionless basketball. Are we moving now towards, in the NFL defensively, positionless defense?
I don't think we're moving there like basketball is because it's just such a different sport. However, you are going to see more of I think some of the hybrid sort of players where you can kind of put them at a couple different spots.
Yeah, I mean, Cato June was a safety in college, and the Colts made him a linebacker, right? I mean, we're seeing.
They've done that in the past.
I know, but but it does feel like you're starting to see more of that. That was kind of the anomaly, then, is what I'm getting at, and now it seems more normal.
Yeah, even with defensive ends, you're probably able to get guys that are lighter, a little bendier than perhaps in the past. Yeah, because they want to get around the edge.
I've always wondered this too. Liatu Latu has great bend, right? Isn't that right? He should be from Oregon. He's got great bend. I've always wondered this.
Cam is not approving of the joke.
I know why they call it a nickel package, because you're going with a fifth DB. Why dime?
I have no idea.
Shouldn't dime have 10?
Yes.
That makes no sense.
But then you would have nobody on the offensive line, so I guess that.
So
football lingo doesn't make sense to me.
So dime is just the nickel and a penny, right?
Yes.
So instead of saying a guy's coming in as part of the dime package, shouldn't they just say he's the penny because he's the sixth that's being added to the nickel?
Or the six-pack? I don't know.
Can I coin that? I trademarked Why Not Indiana. I should trademark the penny guy.
Did you really trademark Why Not Indiana?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
You didn't know that?
I didn't know that. I really didn't know that.
I actually have a thought here on this.
Have you been saying it on the air? Why Not Indiana?
Maybe, every now and then.
Okay, well,
I owe you some royalties.
Yeah, okay. You'll hear from my accountant. Yes, Eddie.
So on the dime package, aren't you technically at your smallest? Like when you're on the field, you've got you're not as big.
Good point. And the dime, the smallest coin. Is that what you're getting at?
Yes.
Okay, not bad.
I like the way you're thinking, but I honestly need to Google this. Let's ask, Chat GPT. But no, seriously, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's actually a very good question.
So you were saying Hunter Walter could be a penny guy.
Yes. I think that
he's
really
the
could
sixth guy that's added to the nickel.
I think that he could truly be that guy and be a rangier defender for them and someone who can make the passing game a little bit harder.
Here's the thing. When you put in the dime guy, they should make that a movie about seeing dead people. You know why? It's The Sixth Sense, right?
Oh, my goodness. Okay. The dad joke
Listen,
today.
I just want to let everybody know. I mean, this stuff's for free. You using Why Not Indiana costs you money, but this kind of stuff I'm giving you for free, right? Just so you know.
Well, I'd rather get sued because you're hurting me right now.
I'm telling you. Well, Stephen Holder will actually mercifully give you some reprieve because he's going to join us next, James. We'll let you get back to your tenderloin sandwich that you said is banging, right?
It is banging.
I noticed yesterday, each time you mentioned A.D. Mitchell, you said he's cooking.
Saucepan.
So if somebody's cooking long enough, then eventually it's banging, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or it's burnt, what he told us about one of those plays.
Oh, really?
Yeah, called it burnt toast. I was like, oof, okay. Then after practice, of course, he didn't want to get and divulge into the trash talk. It was just competitive fire.
Of course.
I'm like, man.
Guys just want to get out there and hit guys from the other team. Exactly. That's how it works. All right, Stephen Holder is going to join us next. We're here at the Legends in Franklin. It is the Fan Golf Invitational, and you're listening to it appropriately on The Fan. Here's where I'm confused. And again, I'm the first to admit, I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed. Stephen Holder can help us out with this, okay? Jason points out, and it makes perfect sense, there are 2 nickelbacks and a dime. But I don't think that's right, because a nickelback doesn't become a nickelback until, aside from a bad Canadian band, until they're just simply the 5th corner, and then they become the nickel. So if you have 2 nickels, I guess that's right? Because then you go the 5th and the 6th. So then 2 nickels make a dime. Is that how that works? Seems to me like they'd just be the penny, because they're the one that's added onto the nickel, right? Instead of the dime. But Stephen Holder, do we have Stephen Eddy? Stephen Holder joins us now, and I'm sure thrilled to be doing so as the Colts get set tonight to take on the Baltimore Ravens. Preseason game number 1. Of course, you see Stephen on ESPN. You can read his work there as well. Stephen, I was just asking that question of, so if the nickel is just the 5th corner, right? Isn't that what the nickel is?
I mean, essentially, yes. It's 5. It
Okay.
means 5 defensive backs, so you're the 5th, yes. Yeah.
Okay, so then a dime package is 6 defensive backs, right?
That is correct.
So in other words, because you're adding 2
It makes
defensive
perfect
backs,
sense, right?
that's why it's called a dime, right? Because you're adding 2 and 5 is 10. Is that right? I don't want that to be right, because that makes too much sense.
I've never thought about this. You'll be shocked to learn that you are confronting me with something that I had not thought about. But I'm now kind of curious. I'm not going to lie to you.
What percent of the time, Stephen?
Digging.
What percent of the time that you and I talk, whether it be on the radio or at a Pacer game, do you say to yourself, that's actually, he just mentioned something I've never thought about before? A high percentage, correct?
It happens a time or two. Yeah, it definitely does. It's not uncommon. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Also, I'll tell you what is uncommon.
I guess.
I mean,
go ahead.
It's that, or I just have massive some sort of ADD. But I'll tell you what is uncommon. What is uncommon is oftentimes for a team in preseason game number 1 to show a lot and give you indication as to what they may look like schematically speaking in the regular season. Is that going to be true to form tonight? And if you look at, based on the practice itself, is one of the 2 teams between the Colts or the Ravens more likely than the other to maybe open the playbook up a little bit more than the other one?
Yeah, I think if there is one team likely to do it, it's the Colts, just because of the situation they're in. They're trying to evaluate the quarterbacks. You got to give them something to work with. At the same time, Shane Steichen, if I know him like I think I do, he is a stickler for not showing a lot and wanting to surprise his opponents. You see even how he handles, for example, injuries, right? He is notoriously mysterious about that. He's very honest about why. He doesn't want his opponents to know anything. So I find it unlikely that guy's going to show a ton in this game. But we'll see how it goes. And they won't play everybody on offense, even though Anthony Richardson's going to play. Michael Pittman's not going to play in this game. You may have even some offensive linemen. I don't know if Quentin Nelson's going to play, for example. He may play a series, but he might not be out there the whole time with Anthony Richardson, just as an example.
Okay, Stephen, here's a question that I brought up earlier, and it's one of those that I just kind of spontaneously thought of, and then I thought, well, I'm probably a moron for asking this, and then I thought, maybe I'm not as big a moron as I think, okay? Does, for example, the center position, I think for certain that's Bortolini, but Penter's gotten a little bit of rep there. The line seemingly is almost set for the most part for the Colts, but does, in particular the center position, is in any way, shape, or form that situation linked to the quarterback spot? In other words, if it's Anthony Richardson that you think is going to be your starter, do you go with a center that has a flexibility or a range of motion or whatever it may be that is more based on what Richardson can improvise versus another at that spot? And then feel free to tell me if, in fact, that's the dumbest thing you've ever heard.
Okay. Well, no, that won't be the case. They won't make any. There won't be any considerations like that. And at the end of the day, the continuity with the 5 men on the offensive line, that matters more than any of that other stuff. Whether that's the case or not, it trumps all of that, right? You want the continuity, particularly at a position like center, because, he can get used to the quarterbacks, both quarterbacks, their cadences, the way they operate, et cetera. You want to have continuity at that position just about as much as anywhere else, I think. So, no, there won't be any consideration like that.
Is there a battle to look for tonight? Or let me rephrase that. Is there somebody tonight, Stephen Holder, our guest, ESPN.com, we are at the Legends in Franklin for the Fan Invitational Golf Outing. Stephen, as the Colts take to the field tonight against the Ravens in preseason game number 1, give me a player that this outing is bigger for them than you would have guessed when everyone reported to camp.
Actually, a guy that I've really taken a liking to is Hunter Wohler, the 7th-round pick from Wisconsin. Listen, I've covered a lot of 7th-round picks in my time. I would say they got about a 1 in 2 chance of even making the roster, okay? This guy, though, every day he makes another play to the point where the coaches are like, well, screw it. Maybe this guy should be on the field. So can he take it from practice to the actual game? And if he can do that, then you're really cooking with gas with that kid, and then you can see how much more you can give him. Look, I don't think he's going to start or anything, but there's going to be a role for him potentially in this defense. We talked about the dime defense earlier in this interview, and they will use some of that. They will use different packages on defense. We call them sub-packages. You have your base defense, you got your nickel defense, and you got all the other sub-packages. He could be in one of those where they just go heavy on the DBs, and that's why they've kind of de-emphasized the linebackers. They've also had him playing a little bit of a linebacker role as well. So he's versatile, he's instinctive, he's a football junkie. He's your cliche guy, sort of a Wisconsin cliche guy, but that's what you want out of your late round picks.
Stephen, how many running backs will the Colts carry?
So I think the maximum's 4 is what I think. And if it is 4, that 4th guy needs to be a real special teams standout. So we'll see how those roles develop. But I think 4 is tops. You're really going to use 3, I think, at maximum.
And they've already had attrition at that position. So if you looked at it, if they go with what's the dividing line between 3 and 4, and how close is it?
Well, I think right now I feel like 1 and 2 we kind of know. Number 1, you might have heard of Jonathan Taylor, and and certainly they've gotten a really good camp out of their rookie, and I think he's the number 2 running back right now. I love that pick. And
you're talking about Giddens out of Kansas State, right?
Sorry, yes, that's correct, yes. And that's been a good 1-2 punch. Number 3, I guess, is a little more fluid, but I think the dividing line is going to be, who is the guy who, if he has to fill in, can perform all the different roles. So you're probably looking more for versatility in terms of role for your number 3 guy. Like I said, number 4 is probably more special teams. Number 3 needs to be the guy who, if somebody goes down, gets a hamstring, et cetera, you can come in and you can perform any role. You can play first, second, third down. And so that has to play out a little more. But I think the preseason will give us a good indication of that, however.
And Giddens is, for those that have not seen him, and I'm going a little bit, Stephen Holder, our guest. With DJ Giddens, I'm going a little bit off of the narrative about him coming out of college. But you say 1-2 combo with Jonathan Taylor. He seems to me to be a guy that can bounce outside and do Jonathan Taylor things, but is a more between the tackles durability back. Is that a fair way of assessing his skill set?
So I do think that's somewhat true. But when you say between the tackles, the only thing I would quibble with is that he's not this sort of, big bruising physical runner. He's going to make his cut and go. He's got a really good ability to change direction. He's not going to have the same explosion as Jonathan Taylor. When Taylor puts his foot in the ground, to use a coach's, cliche, he explodes out of the cut. DJ Giddens isn't quite that, but he does have explosiveness, and I think his top-end speed is really impressive. So the other thing about him is I really think he has a great opportunity to be a third down back. He's shown really good hands in training camp, and I'll be honest, that is Jonathan Taylor's greatest weakness. He doesn't have reliable hands, and as a pass protector, I still can't understand why Jonathan Taylor hasn't gotten better at that over the years. He's too good of an athlete, but it's the one point of frustration I would say about Jonathan Taylor is like, buddy, go block that linebacker.
And Stephen, you know what's interesting? And I realize for Jonathan Taylor, he's not overly concerned with the history of the Indianapolis, but that said, Indianapolis is, and I think this fan base and this franchise has been spoiled by having traditionally very good blocking backs, right? Some of the best backs that have come through here. Now, I'm not talking Eric Dickerson here, but from Albert Bentley to, it was the most underappreciated aspect of Edgerrin James's game. Joseph Adai could do it as well, right? And that is a critical point. It is such a benefit when you get that.
Well, look, you were not going to play with Peyton Manning if you couldn't do that. Okay, he was counting on everybody to execute, and if you didn't execute, you were going to hear about it from that Sunday to the following Sunday. Okay, so there just wasn't any tolerance for that in that offense when Peyton Manning is at the controls, and I think that's fine. I'm fine with that. I think that should be the expectation. Look, the quarterback has to be able to operate, and look, when you can't protect the quarterback as a running back, you put him in jeopardy. You just really put him in jeopardy. So anyway, I do think Jonathan Taylor tries, but he just doesn't execute well in that area. And even people close to him understand that it's been an issue. So it's why he hasn't caught more passes in his career, and it's why they haven't kept him on the field as much on third down. I still think they should give him chances in the passing game, because when he does catch the ball, and you give him the ball in the open field, it's still Jonathan Taylor in the open field. So I think there's some calculated risk there, but you'd like him to be more proficient in the passing game in all areas.
Stephen Holder's our guest. When you were in college at the University of Miami, you lived in, I assume, at least your freshman year, did you live in the dorms for a year, maybe two?
I did initially live in a dorm, yes.
Okay. When you lived in the dorms, did you, in Indiana, euchre was a huge card game. Everybody played euchre. I think that's kind of a Midwestern Hoosier thing. Did you ever get into playing cards, whether it be poker, whether it be, rummy, whatever, hearts, spades, whatever? Did you ever play cards when you were in college?
Not a ton. So I guess I'm going to mess up whatever storyline you're going for here. But I mean, yeah, I've played cards in my life. Yes.
Okay. So with that said, we wagered into or ventured into a discussion/debate earlier, did Eddie and myself. And I want you, Stephen Holder, to work as the judge and jury here, okay?
Okay.
When I ask you about card games, and I said, what sort of card games do you play? Euchre, the ones that I just mentioned. I'm not saying Eddie's even wrong in this, but I think it's an interesting discussion. Do you consider Uno to be a card game, or is Uno a game that happens to utilize cards?
I would say not a card game. I would say it's its own thing. I think it's its own thing. It's its own separate thing. Yeah. So I don't know who was on what side of that, but
hang on. I'm texting Shannon right now to let her know you're still in for the mix with Pacer tickets for next year. Because you agree with me on this one. You are correct. Now, the other one, which is an age-old debate that I've done on the show before, Stephen, and then we'll move along, I promise, back to the Colts, because I have a Baltimore question for you. But that is this. Is it, and I've done this one before, but it came back up again because I was walking into it and I saw their sign, and then my brain started working on it again. PetSmart. Is it a mart for pets, or is it you have a smart pet based on PetSmart?
Wow, another one that I have never thought about. So we're now 2 for 2 here. This is good. I don't know. Let's see. I will tell you what my brain has interpreted it as.
Okay.
As someone who has shopped there, I interpreted it as like pet and then smart. In this regard, like you're smart if you shop here for your pet. I don't know. That's just the way my stupid
Understood.
brain
So we're one for one.
digested
hold on.
that.
But hold on, Stephen. Now let me state my case here, okay? What about the fact that the bouncing ball that is landing between the T and the S is the appearance of an apostrophe, thus PetSmart? And I'm with you to a great extent, except for when you're walking in, if it is one that happens to have a boarding division, it also says out front, Pets Hotel, Petshotel. Thus, if it is Pets Hotel, meaning a hotel for pets, then PetSmart would mean a mart for pets. Now, does that
Fair enough.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
so
fair
you're
enough.
going with a tie on this one.
No.
I will admit, I never considered marks. It just never my mind never digested it that way. Had I done that, I probably would have considered all these great arguments you just made that I'm sure you've been thinking about for a very long time.
I'm texting Shannon again. Disregard previous text regarding tickets. Stephen, what will we see tonight, if anything, or what you anticipate based on the practice out of the Ravens and some of the challenges or intrigue that could be presented for the Colts, or an area where it's going to be benefit to have preseason game number 1 taking place against the Ravens because it will test Indianapolis in this area?
Ravens are play. They're key guys. I don't believe Lamar Jackson is going to play. I think there are actually quite a few Ravens we'll see tonight. They are a veteran team. They know what they have. They're just trying to get to week 1. Let's be honest. They're talking about trying to find their depth pieces and develop their young guys. That's what it's about for the Ravens. I think that's why you do the joint practices, is really for your veterans, and have them play in a controlled environment and not have to subject them to the tackling in the preseason. So you won't see Lamar. They did see him in practice quite a bit. I thought the Colts held their own. I was pretty impressed, in fact. And I came away from that joint practice feeling like this team, I feel better about the Colts after that joint practice. I feel better about the quarterbacks, and I feel better about the team just overall as well. So I thought it was a very productive week, and we'll see if they can finish it off tonight.
Okay, lastly, Stephen, before we let you go, personal opinion, okay? Baltimore, underrated as a city. What say you?
So I got to give Baltimore more of a chance. I've been there for 3 days now and not really done much of anything. In fact, this is kind of sad. Yesterday, I had a free afternoon, and I used it to drive down to D.C. So that's
Understood.
on.
Hold on.
And now I'm actually driving out to have lunch with my cousin, who lives just across the border in Pennsylvania. So yeah, I haven't made the most of it.
By the way, just so you know, Stephen, that border of which you speak between Pennsylvania and Maryland is actually the Mason-Dixon line. Contrary to many people believing it is a more southern line, the Mason-Dixon line separates Pennsylvania from Maryland. Fun fact. Rookie mistake on your behalf of driving from Baltimore to D.C. because you should have taken the train, because that's the true East Coast experience. And
True.
Lastly, I'm kicking myself that I did not tell you of this earlier, but I have mentioned this on the radio many times because it absolutely mesmerizes me. And it shows you what the Colts meant to the city of Baltimore at its, in their prime. There is a bar in the Fells Point area of Baltimore, which is a cool area. It's kind of an older historical area. Yep. Maybe I've told you this before. And on the wall of the bar, they have a glass-topped coffin that is painted as a Mayflower truck. And inside the glass coffin, they have a wax body of Bob Irsay with a quote on it that says, Ed Schaefer is my friend, and we won't leave Baltimore. And then on the other side, it says, he lied, so he died. And on key moments in Ravens history, they take the Bob Irsay dummy down, and people do body shots off of it in the bar. I didn't believe it. I went and saw it myself. All of that factual, and that's your side trip to do when you get back from your cousins. There you go.
That is one of the top 10 most amazing stories I think I've ever heard.
That is a true story. That is a true story.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, we got to end the interview there. I got nothing
That's
else.
it. I'm telling you, I'll send you the name of the place. You can go find. I didn't believe it either, and I went in and I'm like, holy cow, there it is. And I'm like,
yeah,
these people,
I got to.
They ain't messing around, man.
This requires some journalism. This requires some journalism. I'm going to have to dig into this. Yeah.
They ain't messing around, man. I'm telling you right now. All right, Stephen Holder, the game tonight, the Colts and the Ravens. Stephen, appreciate it as always, man. Travel safe, okay?
All right, you got it. Thanks.
All right, Stephen went 1 for 2 on the Uno and the PetSmart. Now, Eddie, for what it's worth, and I mentioned earlier, the new mature me does admit when I can potentially be wrong, okay? But again, conflicting stuff here, okay? One person says, Jake, I'm in marketing. It is meant to be a double use of the word either way. Fair, okay? Somebody else pointed out to me, no, it is definitely the smart aspect because they rebranded in 2005 to say that you are smart as a pet owner if that's where you're going.
Yes.
Hey, Jake, you need a game show hosting job for all this stuff in your head.
God.
I can tell you one person that it was their dream job to be a game show host. There's one person in Indianapolis lore that their dream job was to host a game show. And unfortunately for them, that never came to fruition. But fortunately for the people of Indianapolis, it didn't come to fruition because it meant that they ventured into a different media job, and it involved all of that just quick-witted stuff. And I'm talking about Ed Sorensen. Ed Sorensen, the former Channel 6 sportscaster, used to routinely tell me that his true calling in life was to be a game show host, and that's what he wanted to do, but instead he ended up a local sportscaster. Matt Taylor is a local sportscaster in the form of the fact he's a national one, really, because he's the radio voice of the Indianapolis Colts, and he is with them in Baltimore. And I'm kind of curious, to be honest with you, what the schedule, so to speak, is for an NFL franchise on a preseason game. So we'll ask him about exactly that when he joins us next, as we are here at the Legends on an awesome day, awesome day to help out the Franciscan Health Foundation and their cancer care program. And we're doing it from the Legends in Franklin, as I mentioned, at the Fan Invitational Golf Outing on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. We're at the Legends down in Franklin. This is an awesome golf course. Awesome. And it's a great event today, all to benefit the Franciscan Health Foundation and their cancer care program. You hear me talking a lot about Franciscan and their cardiovascular care, but also their compassion when it comes to those who are entering that journey with cancer. That's what Franciscan's Foundation is for, and we're raising money for it today. Silent auction items are here. A lot of golfers that went out. Shotgun start at 10:30. They're starting to kind of roll themselves in here, I would imagine, in the next hour or so. And right in the transition when between myself and JMV is when a lot of the golfers will be finished, and we will give out awards for that here at the Legends. But JMV will be on from 3 until 4. Then it is the Colts pregame huddle from 4 until 6, because the Colts in action tonight taking on the Baltimore Ravens, preseason game number 1. On the radio call for it, he is nice enough to give us a little time today. Matt Taylor joining us on the program. Matt, I'm going to begin with this because I think I certainly find this interesting. And that is, I am curious, and I know that in the preseason it's probably different than regular season, but what is the actual schedule for an NFL team on game day in terms of like the time that they first start assembling to when they head to the stadium, etc.? Can you kind of walk us through what a day looks like on a game day?
Yeah, well, when you play in prime time, or in this case, 7 o'clock, like evening, night game, it's a whole lot of sitting around and waiting. It feels like the game doesn't start till 11 o'clock. So long story short, they have different waves of options for guys. So there's a pregame meal that's probably going on right around now. It's 1:30 right now. It probably goes until about 3 o'clock. There is an equipment bus that goes over early. That's when the equipment guys go over and kind of put the final finishing touches on setting up the locker room and getting the training tables all set and things like that. You've got the medical guys going over shortly thereafter, and then guys can kind of go over in waves. They can kind of pick the different times of buses they go over depending on who you are and what your pregame routine is. If you're kind of banged up, maybe you go early to get treatment and some rehab and stuff like that. But, we're going to get there about, 3:15. And me, just speaking for me personally, get there and kind of set up. And you said the pregame show is going to start at 4, kind of be there to help oversee that and set up my stuff and kind of get situated. So, I like to get there early just to kind of feel like, you're there and you're all set up, get your bearings, go through notes, don't feel rushed and things like that. So, in a typical regular season 1 o'clock game, let's say a home game, I'm usually at the stadium by 9:30. And just kind of like to, casually go through the notes one more time, memorize the roster, and just feel like you're extra prepared for game day.
When you are doing a game like tonight, and listen, Matt, tonight's a night where you earn your money. And I mean that in a good way because, you've got to, and it's a credit to you, you've got to call some names and know some names on both sides of the football that it may be the only time that you're seeing these guys play because they don't make the roster. That's probably more so like in, say, Game 3. But nonetheless, you are seeing players with which you're relatively unfamiliar. What point in the game do you feel like you've got an instinctive nature on the rivals or the other team's roster? Or is it literally a learning process for all 4 quarters?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's the wild, wild west now, as you know, Jake. We used to have 4 preseason games, and there used to be like a little bit of a rhythm to it. We had the starters would play a quarter, then they play a quarter and a half, and then the third game they'd play a full half, the dress rehearsal concept. Then the fourth game, nobody would play. It'd be the back end of the roster guys. Now with joint practices and only having 3 preseason games, it's just like everybody's got a different objective and what they're trying to get out of the preseason in terms of playing time and how much we're going to see starters and stuff like that. So that's a long-winded way of saying you got to be ready for anything and everything. And so there's really no rhythm to it. I suspect with the Ravens tonight, they're not going to play any of their starters. And I don't even know if they're going to play some of the rotational guys in their 2-deep, second string guys. So I think I'm going to see a lot of their 3s and 4s really throughout the course of the night. And so, yeah, to your point, you got to be prepared for all of that. You got to know all the Colts roster. I mean, it's 180 guys. It's a lot of work. You do have to sort of earn your money this time of year. The month of August, I always say, is its own season because you've got training camp, and it's different times and different days, and you're playing on different days. You got 180 guys, 90-man rosters. It's just completely different from a routine standpoint, because there is no routine, than the regular season. The regular season is all about the stars and the front end roster guys, and the starters obviously play the entire game. There's a rhythm to the week. Monday's Monday, Tuesday. So August is just sort of like controlled chaos, right? We've been in Baltimore for 4 days, a joint practice, but it's fun. I mean, this is literally, a lot of these guys Super Bowls, trying to make the roster, trying to stick in the NFL, and so you owe it to them to tell their story, get things right, and hype them up as much as you can, knowing this is a huge opportunity for undrafted free agents or guys that are just trying to continue to get a paycheck playing professional football.
Matt Taylor's our voice, or is our guest, I should say, the voice. He's our voice, too, when it comes to the Colts, the voice of the Colts. Matt, give me the name of a guy that you realized very early in camp you better get used to, because you're going to be saying it a lot, and you did not think 3 weeks ago perhaps that would be the case.
Yeah, I love that question. I think on offense, I'm going to be saying Tyler Common's name a lot. I think he's going to play a lot tonight, especially in the second half, after the Daniel Jones run is over. He's a Division II guy for the Colts from Emporia State, and he was a finalist for basically the equivalent of the Division II Heisman Trophy. He set all kinds of conference records. Emporia State is a Division II school from Kansas, and he set the program record for catches and yards and receiving touchdowns. Could have transferred up, but knew that he had a chance to really shine and ball out there and get a ton of playing time and make a name for himself at that level, and then get a shot as an undrafted guy in the NFL with the Colts. Coleman Owen is a name that I think you're going to see a lot tonight as well. He's a slot receiver, kind of a Josh Downs type of player, and he is really impactful. He's catching a lot of balls in training camp. Undrafted guy out of Ohio, dominated the MAC. And then on defense, because of the war of attrition at that spot at cornerback, Jonathan Edwards. He is a undrafted rookie free agent, transferred from Indiana State. He played 3 years for the Sycamores, so he's got a little bit of a Hoosier tie to him down at Terre Haute, but transferred to Tulane his last year. But he's playing a lot because Jalen Jones is banged up. Juju Brents is still dealing with a hamstring. I don't think we're going to see Charvarius Ward tonight for obvious reasons. And then Justin Wally got banged up in practice on Tuesday, and I'm not sure if he's going to play tonight either.
Boy,
so
and he's had a good camp, Justin Wally, right?
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, Jake, because you wanted to see him out there on a game field. You were so impressed with everything that he was doing in training camp, running with the first team defense. I know it's a preseason game field, but you just wanted to see him go up against different guys in a different uniform in a different setting. So I don't know if you're going to see that tonight, but Jonathan Edwards is going to get some more playing time. Alex Johnson's going to get some more playing time. Chris Lamons, some of Trey Herndon, Duke Shelley. These are guys they signed just for depth purposes because of the injuries in camp. But I think, Rick Venturi always likes to say, I'm going to know your number and not your name until I need to know your name. And I think number 35 for the Colts, Jonathan Edwards, is on a first-name basis now because he is making plays, getting a lot of run with the second-team defense, and I think you're going to see him a lot tonight because of the guys banged up on the depth chart ahead of him.
Matt, you're probably – I don't know if you would remember this because it was my childhood and it was probably gone by your childhood, but before there were in cars, before you had the automatic standard cup holder that was made within a car, there was a trend in the late 70s into the early 80s where you could buy these little plastic things that hung on the windowsill of your car and you could put your can in them, your can of Coke or whatever. Do you know at all what I'm talking about? Does that sound in any way vaguely familiar at all?
100%. Yeah. And they were oftentimes like swags, people would put logos on them and give them away
Correct.
like a golf outing or something.
Correct. So The one time in my life that I've been to Emporia, Kansas, my buddy Sean Hoog from the University of Kansas, I went back to his hometown for a weekend to hang out, and we're driving past in the middle of Emporia, Kansas, just on the outskirts of Emporia State, and there's this massive rolling estate. I mean, a huge house. And I'm, holy cow, who in the world lives there? And the guy goes, you know those little plastic things? And he describes what we just talked about. I go, yeah. And he goes, yeah, that guy that lives in that house invented them. Some farmer invented them, wanted one for his John Deere, made like $15 million in 1978 and called it a day. Now probably what he's doing is writing NIL checks for the Heisman Trophy finalists of the Division II football ranks, right?
And everything comes back. I mean, it's nostalgia and it's vintage. Right now, I mean, people were throwing those away because they didn't need them anymore, and now it's cool to have that kind of stuff.
That's right.
You're kind of digging for those things at Goodwill to kind of bring them back in vogue. That's what
What's
happens.
old is new, buddy. What's old is new, right?
That's exactly right. Same thing with fashion.
Okay. So, well, yeah. Listen, I've got my entire closet of stuff. I'm waiting for the rebound, right? I mean, let's be real. Okay, Matt. So again, about 3:15 is when you will head over tonight, and then things will get underway. You will be on the pregame, overseeing that or helping out with that at 4:00 right here on this radio station, and then of course the game tonight between the Colts and the Ravens. Always appreciate the time. I know it's a busy day, so certainly enjoy the kind of calm before the storm. All right, and have a good call tonight.
I appreciate you guys. By the way, Jake, I did take a rec golf class at Franklin College that involved us doing a golf chapter, and we would just go whack balls for about 45 minutes at the Legends at Franklin. So
That's
I know
beautiful.
that course
I
very
forgot you're
well.
a Grizzly, yeah.
That's right. So, yeah, a lot of pride for where you're at right now. You're in God's country.
All right, appreciate it. It is God's country. It's nice down here. It is nice, and like I mentioned, we're doing it all to help people out with the Franciscan Health Care Foundation. Matt, appreciate it.
All right, Jake, be well.
Matt Taylor joining us on the program. Mark Dykton has been eating the tenderloin sandwich now for 45 minutes. I want to get a review of the tenderloin sandwich from Mark Dykton, who just finished his 9th bowl of Cocoa Krispies at 10 a.m. and is now enjoying his pork tenderloin. I don't know if that's better or worse than his cotton candy beer, but we'll find out from that. And there was something that happened yesterday in Puerto Rico that might tell us something but might not. I'll talk about that and answer that riddle when we return to the Legends Golf Club at the Fan Invitational Golf Outing here at Square & Company, Thursday edition on the Fan. We are essentially on about hole 14 of the day, if you will, for this day of, and this has been a lot of fun. This is the first time since I have been a part of this radio station that we have had a golf outing on a traditional golf course. It is the Legends down in Franklin. Beautiful course. All to benefit Franciscan Health Foundation. Jay Query here. Eddie Garrison is back in studio. JMV is shooting jump shots. Ducks has brought in a temporary basketball court, and John's been shooting shots all day. Kevin Bowen is out on the 15th hole doing a longest drive competition, and Mark Dykton was wandering around aimlessly. And so I decided to get a scouting report from him on the tenderloin sandwich, Mark. And you were like Eddie, you were locked down back in studio for the better part of the morning, right?
I was, but I finished the show. I was told, hey, you can come down here if you'd like to. We probably attendance is encouraged. Like, oh, that sounds almost mandatory. So I came down here after the show, and yeah, listener was short a man on this foursome. So he's like, you want to jump on for a few holes? So I did that. That was a good time. And then
now, is this a best ball scramble,
yes,
or how are they doing it?
Best ball, yes. So I had a couple shots that were best ball. That was good on me. Give myself a little back slap there.
Are you a good golfer?
Not really, not particularly. Like I was going right quite a bit, so I adjusted and went. They're like, you're aiming way left. I'm like, trust me, watch this thing go, and still went right.
Okay.
But I knocked in a putt, so we got a birdie on a couple holes. I don't know if you know this or not,
but our coworkers across the hall love when you go too far right.
I know.
They're big fans of that. Yeah.
Hey, is that Rob Kendall over there? Oh, that's my Titleist. There it is.
That's right. Okay, so Mark, you just had the tenderloin sandwich.
Yes.
I watched you. It took you 2.5 segments for you to eat that.
It did. Well, I'm glad. Shaking hands, kissing babies out here, saying hi to listeners. You're going to do the same thing at 3 o'clock, my friend. You're going to be walking around and, hello, good to see you.
I've been here since before you were on the air this morning.
I know. You bombarded our airwaves for a little bit. Put us late on the break.
Did I?
A little bit. That's okay.
That's new for you, isn't it?
Not really.
Mm-hmm.
More and more frequent.
Okay, so Kevin Bowen's out there.
He's sweating like he stole something out there. He is. There is no tent out there. Kevin Bowen, if you see him, like I have a delivery for him. I don't know if you've heard the morning show, Jake. Kevin and I have a bit of a bet since this Cubs-Reds situation ended, where he wants Mondos from the 90s. Are you familiar with Mondos? They're these 90s like juice drinks.
Yeah.
So they don't longer.
They're the ones with the little.
You twist them off.
Yeah. Yep.
So they no longer exist. They went out of distribution in 2021. He claims he had one, so I had to go over his head because he wouldn't tell me the location. I had to ask his wife, where did she get them? She's like, first of all, my mom got them. Second of all, they're not Mondos. They're Kool-Aids. But Kevin thinks they're Mondos.
Oh, really?
So I have a full cooler of Mondos that I will deliver to him, and he will probably inhale those.
Did you change the labels?
No.
Okay.
He's just got to deal with it. They do not exist. They are no longer in distribution.
Speaking of no longer in distribution, Eddie Garrison, if you had the breaking news sounder, please. This just in, and apparently maybe it's because of the Bob Irsay coffin that I had mentioned, but Nacho Mama's, the very popular Baltimore Mexican-themed restaurant bar, and it is a super cool joint. In January of this year closed because they are now becoming half-shell, so probably more Baltimore cuisine, but it was a super cool bar. It was one of those that you go in, it kind of looked like all wooden on the inside, kind of looked like the old upstairs pub in Bloomington, and everything on the wall is old Johnny Unitas and Jim Palmer and old newspaper articles of the Orioles of yesteryear and the Colts and everything else, and then the Bob Irsay coffin, which, that alone is a little odd. But apparently they closed in January, so if you are in fact, I don't know if that means that they keep the coffin with Bob Irsay in it and move it to half shell or what they're going to do there, but people just informed me that it is now closed. So you missed your window.
Well, I never made it out there. I'm glad we matched shirts, by the way. That looks really cool right now on the YouTube chat, I'm sure. Matching our wardrobe.
There's an element of this that's a little embarrassing.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, because you can't play the, you know who I am, because they just see the fan. Like, oh, Jake Query here.
No, that never happens.
JMV is easily identifiable. He looks
not
like Muggsy Bogues. Have you seen
be.
His wardrobe? Looks like Muggsy Bogues out there.
Yeah. But he's not as much identifiable as he used to be, right? Because he's for the better, he's revamped himself.
Yes,
and he looks great.
I saw a collector's item. Someone had a sleeve of golf balls from like one of our back nine outings, and it was heavier JMV. That's a collector's item.
That's right.
You need to get him to autograph that.
That's right.
That's one of one.
I noticed, by the way, and then we're going to come back and talk a little bit about Bill Springer coming up in about 15 minutes. But I did notice, Mark, that you signed Derek's picture, right?
Uh-huh. Very sloppy handwriting.
That's new? And when did you?
That was the first back nine outing we did, I think.
But did you sign it then?
Yes.
I just noticed he posted it the other day. This is listener Derek, who has a beer pitcher that's been signed, a PBR pitcher that's been signed by everybody, basically.
Yeah, and if you notice, my signature is smeared because I'm left-handed, so I smeared my signature like a complete goober.
Well, you have terrible handwriting anyway.
I do. It's god-awful.
We'll come back.
Tenderloin
just a
sandwich
couple
is
minutes.
outstanding.
What's that?
Tenderloin sandwich is outstanding.
Tenderloin sandwich outstanding. That from Mark Dykton. Golfers starting to round things out, I would assume. And about 20 minutes from now, we're going to catch up with somebody who played for one of the legendary high school basketball coaches in Indiana, who that coach passed away at the age of 90, actually, and will be laid to rest tomorrow. That conversation coming up in just a bit. But I mentioned it to you, something that happened down in Puerto Rico that has an interesting tie to it and might have answered some questions for us, but still a lot of questions to be answered. And I'll let you know what I'm talking about, I promise, as soon as we come back to the Legends Golf Course at the Fan Golf Invitational here. You're listening to it on, appropriately enough, The Fan. I admittedly loved this song when it was out. One of those songs that doesn't really feel like it stood the test of time. Mark Dykton's more hip than myself and can answer that. Would you agree with that, Mark, or disagree?
That it hasn't held up?
Like, it was super cool when it came out and I loved it, but now I hear it and it's kind of like embarrassingly cheesy.
Yeah, I mean, I had this album, so I mean, I obviously very much enjoyed this song. I think the American Pie 2 soundtrack had a role too, because I think "Loser" was another Three Doors Down song that was prominently featured in that movie.
Not
Very
to be
good.
confused with "Loser" by Beck, which is a great song.
That's
right?
another good one. Lots of Loser songs.
Indiana was, and I don't know how much you guys talked about this morning. Mark Dykton joining me here. Jake Query, we are at the fan golf outing down here in Franklin at the Legends Golf Club. Indiana taking to the basketball floor down in Puerto Rico. You can build your own Bob Knight Legends Golf Club 1979 Puerto Rico joke if you'd like. But one of the things I think that is fascinating about this Indiana roster, and I will give Zach Osterman a ton of credit because he has an interesting column in the Indy Star where he basically says, here's the Indiana roster, and, you know, let's get to know each and every player because we don't know really anything about this particular installment of Indiana basketball. And, you know, yeah, we have a general idea what style they would play based on what we've seen out of Coach DeVries, you know, at West Virginia. And then before that, if you look at it and what he was able to do at Drake. But I think more so the names themselves. I mean, and part of this is, obviously, it is the byproduct of a coaching change that takes place late like that. But also in the NIL era and the transfer era and everything else, I mean, recruiting has just become so non-traditional now that you don't have the days of, yeah, I saw that kid in high school. I mean, you do to an extent, but it is obviously now more, 1 to 2 year leases on guys, and you just don't know how long they're going to stick around per se. But for Indiana, Mark, and I don't know if you guys mentioned it this morning, they had a resounding victory in Puerto Rico, but then again, you also have no idea who they're playing. So my long-winded point here is it almost feels like we don't know much more about them than we did yesterday, but at least a win's better than a loss, and that's probably the way that you're going to look at it for the Colts tonight as well, right? I mean, you sure, you look at the result, but how much are you really going to learn?
Right. I kind of called this Colts season, it's going to be a season of transition from the top down, whether, obviously the untimely passing of Jim Irsay, the ownership change there, the kind of hot seat that the front office and head coaching staff and quarterback is under. This just seems kind of like a transition year for the Colts where the Irsay daughters haven't really got to put their own stamp on things because of, when they took over, it was already heading into the draft and season like that. So this whole situation feels like this is kind of a trial run for what the Irsay daughters will have the Colts looking like under their leadership.
That's fair.
So
that's fair.
I've looked at it that way. So, you're not committed to Daniel Jones past this year. Anthony Richardson, yes, he's on his rookie contract. But as of now, I wouldn't be picking up his fifth-year option if I was the Colts. I don't think they are either. So this is kind of a prove-it year for him. But if he's not good, yes, you'll still keep him for one more year. But you'll probably say, okay, well, at that point, we already know that we need to be looking, at our next quarterback. We'll keep him because he's on a rookie deal. But we need to start looking elsewhere when the draft comes around. So from the top down, obviously the Chris Ballard situation too, he's been on the hot seat for what feels like the majority of his tenure here. It's a transition year from ownership, front office, all the way down to quarterback and everything like that.
We won't see tonight is the Colts or Baltimore probably really opening up their offense and showing you a lot. You did see that from Indiana in terms of their basketball game in Puerto Rico. They shot a lot of threes, and I think that's what we're going to see out of Darren DeVries' group this year. The only things that I think that we know for certain after one game, in one game, right?
Yep.
First off, at the guard position, the guy that, by all accounts, I think is true, Lamar Wilkerson looks like a guy, because he's an older player. He's a natural scorer. He is a guy that I think a lot is going to kind of run through, and I think that he probably, according to Zach, and I think it's a really good point, he has about himself just kind of exudes a leadership that players defer to. Mm-hmm. And I think that means that at least in the beginning of the season in particular, there are going to be a lot of offensive sets that run through him because you want, of course, for players to just have that guy in which they're familiar. Now, Trent Sisley is a guy that was a big-time recruit for them. the best recruit that they have coming in, and I think he continues to impress, both in terms of his versatility, but also somebody had mentioned to me, and I'm going on the way back here, I realize, but in terms of the style of play that Sicily brings to the table, somebody had mentioned to me an Eric Anderson type player in terms of the way Anderson was when he first got to Indiana, a guy down on the low post, but also could step out, hit a face-up shot from 15 feet, that kind of thing. And then obviously the big one that's going to be the most natural scorer for Indiana, I think, this year. And that is, and Mark, you played Little League basketball, right? Little League baseball?
Little League baseball and soccer.
Did you ever have the coach's kid on the team?
Yes. He cried every time. I could name him right now if I wanted
go
to.
ahead.
I won't do that.
Go ahead.
I'll just say first name was Matthew.
Matthew?
Yeah. Matthew, and he working. I won't even say last name. Won't say last name.
What did he cry about? Too much pressure on him?
If he didn't play well, or if he didn't play. Because, in Little League, they would rotate the positions. Everybody played every position. So I'd play catcher even though I couldn't catch a lick.
Oh, you and Eddie, right?
Yeah. You know it. So then, you do that or whatever. But if he had a bad outing or just, I don't know, it was a breezy day. I don't know. He cried all the time. His dad's like, come on, Matthew, get it together. And I'm like, all right, this kid.
Do you think everything was okay for Matthew at home?
I think so, but I don't know. I was just like.
What became of Matthew?
I don't know. He's probably on Facebook somewhere. I'm not sure.
Well, I don't know if Tucker DeVries is a guy that cries a lot, but he is the coach's son, and he's going to get the basketball a lot for Indiana, but that's a good thing because he can flat out score. And he is a conference player of the year. He's a guy that has a lot of experience. People at West Virginia are still a little bit perturbed over his transfer and the fact that it looked like that was an immediate, understandably, right? Of course he's going to go when his dad is going from West Virginia to Indiana.
It was a 2-for-1 deal, I feel like. When you knew he was coming, that was like, okay, well, he's obviously coming to you.
I talked with, and I can't remember where I was recently, but I saw some West Virginia, a guy wearing West Virginia stuff, and just walked up and said, hey, you know what? Quick question for you. I'm from Indiana. And he said, I think everybody in West Virginia really did think that he was going to be the guy that was going to, be there forever and was going to be a really good coach for us. And we were, yes, disappointed and felt dejected, not in the fact that he left, but the fact that he had only been there a year, you know what I mean, and left. But he did say, but at the same time, we get it. I mean, you're going from, and I think West Virginia is a really good program and would be a good place to coach, but and I don't know that this is the case the way it was at one time, but nonetheless, there is still a clout about Indiana, or at least the anticipation about Indiana, that you wouldn't have at West Virginia. However, there is also, Mark, I've talked to more coaches lately that have told me that, and consider the source. I mean, I get it. I get that there's a lot of, with Archie Miller and the Indiana fan base that are still, man, what happened with the Archie Miller experiment, et cetera, or tenure. But I had somebody tell me recently that, like, they were talking to Archie Miller, and Archie Miller's like, if I knew the demands that were placed on Indiana and in coaching Indiana, I would not have taken that job to begin with. And I do think that there is some thought that for a lot of coaches that Indiana was one that they just didn't want that sort of a headache, if you will. But I don't think in any way, shape, or form that Darren DeVries, he is one of them, that you had to go after a certain coach that was still excited about that job and willing to take on that kind of a pressure and has the mindset for it. And I think he's a guy that does that. JMV just got done shooting 500 shots and is now leaving with – he's got he's got his energy drink with them.
My God, how many bags does that guy have? He's going to the airport after this?
He just shot 500 shots, man. But anyway, you get what I'm saying about Darren DeVries. I'm excited to see what he can do. But one thing I do know is, based on precedent, a word that I use a lot, I think Indiana's going to be an offense that's wide open and shoots a lot of threes.
I feel like this is one of the first IU teams I can remember in quite a while where there's so much unknown to it because you just don't know how everything is going to translate on the court. You can go to the old West Virginia films and watch how Darren DeVries coached, but I feel like as far as like just a roster standpoint and how everybody gels under his leadership, I feel it's going to be a pretty fascinating season for the Hoosiers. So, out in Puerto Rico now, and then we'll see what they do once the season starts really getting underway in earnest and everything. But a quite fascinating transition. I wonder how much pressure is on them, especially since now the football team is kind of taking
for sure.
Taking over their, IU was a basketball school up until last season.
And Kurt Signetti, from a football standpoint, Mark, in the way that he branded Indiana, a year ago, I think a lot of people in the beginning, Cignetti kind of caught people on their ear, but there were a lot of people I think that thought like, I can't wait for him to get his, be brought back down to earth. And
comeuppance, basically.
And then he comes out this year at Big Ten Media Day and talks about the scheduling issue, and actually you find out he kind of became this spokesperson for the rest of the league, and coaches were saying, thank goodness somebody said what we all were thinking in terms of the way that they schedule versus the SEC, et cetera. Just got this text, by the way. Hey, Jake, big Mark fan.
Oh, thanks. Is that Ashley that texted you?
Mind-blowing, putting a visual to the voice.
Oh, I hope that's a good visual. I had a pork tenderloin, and I had a cotton candy beer, so might be a little more puffy than usual.
I'd like to know what people thought you looked like.
I don't know. I'm curious to see that, too. I am not as tall as like a Kevin Bowen or a Jake Query, but, I'm okay.
Who at our radio station do you think like people would be the most shocked when they meet them to be like, that's what you look like?
I would say Kevin only because he is kind of a giant. He walks through the door and he like ducks his head. I'm like, this is an 8-foot clearance. What are we doing here?
Who's taller between Kevin and myself?
How tall are you?
6'4".
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I honestly don't know that answer.
Kevin says he's 6'3". I know we might have to. Well, we're at the Legends. He can do back-to-back later.
I will be honest about this. My entire life, I've been 6'4". My entire life, and now that I think you always remind me in the second half century of my life. I think Jimmy Cook used to say that a lot to me. Eddie says it from time to time. But I went in for my most recent physical, and they, you stand on the thing, and they were like, no, you're 6'3" and like 3/8.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'm 6'4". No, you were 6'4".
Start getting older. Start shrinking a little bit. Start going back in that shell.
I think I just need to be stretched.
Excuse me?
I think
I'm not here for that. I didn't come over here to do that.
I no, you're helping
deep lunges.
What's that?
Deep lunges.
Just there's got to be some sort of a thing, just where they stretch you. Your back becomes you need more elasticity in your back.
Yeah, there are these stretch labs now.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Now so I will tell you this. I'm very tight. Just so you know, I'm just telling you. When I go to my gym, my buddy Bob stretches me, and he's usually very complimentary of my hamstrings. Calls me the trampoline. Says my hamstrings are like a trampoline, and he says I've never seen anybody with tighter hamstrings than this. Mostly because of just the overall muscle mass of it. Not Earl Campbell level, but like close.
Boy, I know.
You didn't know these. Look, hold on. That's come on.
That's a lot of upper thigh you're showing me right now.
Well, listen, and you can't see that. I could do this on the camera probably for folks, but are you familiar with Bob Seger?
Of course.
Do you know the song that Bob Seger song they used to use in the Chevy commercials?
I know he had one. I don't remember which one it was.
Like a Rock.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Which is again, let me show you my quads and hamstrings here.
This was like Fortunate Son maybe or something.
It's like a rock.
Yeah.
I mean, look at that. Are you not impressed?
Oh, I'm not touching it, though.
I mean, but that's 52 years of muscle right there.
Oh,
that's
yeah. Got some callus on that.
Excuse me?
I don't know.
What?
Eddie, I don't know if you're like me of the mindset, but you probably got a promo out of everything Jake was just talking about there. At least one.
No, he's not.
Yeah, I have to go deliver Kevin some.
We have to go wake Eddie up, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, he might have fallen.
Eddie fell asleep about 1:30. Isn't that right, Eddie? See?
Awesome.
Eddie's taking a nap because tonight he's going to be on the pre- and post game. I don't know, but here's the thing. Everybody that would be listening is actually out playing golf or working with us. So
I apologize,
matter, right?
Jake. I'm doing my job. I was getting William Moore for you while you two are too busy being 12-year-old kids.
Hey, I wasn't the one flashing thighs under the table here.
You were encouraging it.
That's true.
You mentioned William Moore, Eddie, and the reason I wanted to have him on is because, every once in a while you see something in the newspaper or something jumps out at you that kind of harkens you back to another era or another time, or simply you realize that somebody was perhaps even understated in their career, even as accomplished and as rewarded as they were. And Bill Springer is a gentleman who went to Indianapolis, Washington High School. He graduated in 1953, went to Hanover College, so Hoosier through and through. And after playing basketball, then began a coaching career that went through several places. At Linden, Seeger, Brazil, Shortridge in Indianapolis, Jennings County, Bloomington South. I mean, a lot of different stops. And winning 539 games and becoming an Indiana Basketball Hall of Famer. But perhaps he was most known, and maybe I'm speaking esoterically towards myself, but he was the coach at Southport High School during the time that I was playing basketball and when I was in high school. And Southport was, obviously has a fabulous gym, a great history. Louis Dampier was a great player at Southport. Marlon Fleming was a lightning-quick low-post guy that helped Southport in 1991. But in 1990, Southport went to the Final Four, and they were part of the Final Four that was a legendary one in the ranks of Indiana high school basketball history. Because that Final Four, of course, was Damon Bailey's senior year, and you had Elkhart Concord, you had I believe Whitco was the fourth. No, Elkhart, Concord, Anderson, Southport, and Bedford North Lawrence. Those were the four schools that made the Final Four. Whitco made it in 91. But in that 1990 Final Four that was moved to the Hoosier Dome, I went along with 40,000 other people and watched that Southport Cardinal team that took on Damon Bailey and Bedford North Lawrence in the morning game. And what I saw was an unreal performance from a guy that I had seen play and beat North Central on the regular, who was a really good guard for them. And the name William Moore has always stuck out to me. I don't know William Moore, but I always respected and appreciated that. I think he encapsulated what it was from my observation in that time of the coaching essence of Bill Springer. And with Bill Springer passing away, he will be laid to rest tomorrow at the age of 90. He passed away this week. And William Moore now joins us on the program to reflect on his Hall of Fame high school basketball coach. William, first off, in what I know is probably a difficult time in talking about your coach, I do appreciate your time. How are you? Hang on just a second, Eddie. Okay, I hear you now. Go ahead, William.
Okay, I'm okay. How you doing?
I'm well. It's a little warm, I will say that. But we're at the golf outing down here in Franklin, not far from Southport, as a matter of fact. But I wanted to have you on because, Bill Springer, high school basketball is such a special thing, William, obviously. And, I think for a lot of people, and there are a ton of players that played for Bill Springer, but you were on a special team for him. And I just kind of wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about this, and that is, we'll begin with the basketball standpoint of it. You played even beyond Southport High School, but what kind of coach was Bill Springer, and what sort of things from a basketball standpoint did he teach you as a young player?
First of all, out of all the coaches that I played for, from growing up at the Municipal Gardens and going to Fulton Junior High, then going to Southport, and I went to Daytona Beach, then Murray State. Then I toured with the Australian team, and I played a little bit in the USBL. And I got worked out by the Pacers in 95. He's got to be probably top two, if not the best coach that I ever had. And the reason I say that, never heard any type of profanity come out of his mouth. Never said a cuss word. He was a motivator, a leader. He was like a father figure to me. And he propelled us to go to the Final Four. And he was just a good leader. As a person, he was an excellent leader, man. And he was just a terrific person, man. He was unbelievable. And we stayed in contact throughout the years. And I'm a missing. That's all I can say. I'm a missing.
When you look, William, I think that especially in Indiana, you and I are the same era. So growing up in Indiana, you had Bob Knight, you had Gene Cady. I mean, Digger Phelps for that matter at Notre Dame. But those were the two, the guys that were the guys, right, that we all looked towards when you were a younger player. And I think that we always envisioned that coaches, that motivation was almost like a scare tactic. And then you see somebody like a Tony Dungy that you talk to players and they say, he was such a good coach because I just didn't want to disappoint him. I wanted to make sure that I was doing what he asked me to do because he was always fair to me. Is that, when you say he was a motivator, did he motivate by example of the way he was treating you?
Of course, Coach Springer was one of them guys that he joked around in practice. But when it came to business, he taught us the fundamentals of the game, and he made sure we went to Bible study. Every Wednesday, the team went to Bible studies. Certain players went to Bible study at his house. He was just he was just a great motivator. He understood the game. He had some of that Bob Knight in him, but as far as the profanity, he didn't. But as far as the hungriness of the game and the teaching, he had that Bob Knight in him. And I still remember one time we was at practice, and I think George Hemphill was a team with George Hemphill. I think it was my senior year, George Hemphill and Marlon Fleming, Stephen Parker, Dan Von Dilligan, Brad Courtney, Shaka Lands.
Shaka Lands, yep.
Yeah,
yep.
in the summertime, we went to open gym, and Mr. Springer was like 15 passes before a layup, and shoot a layup. And we looked at each other, and, that team we had was very talented, and we was more of a running team. So we said, man, forget this, man. We're going to try to play the way we want to try to play. But Mr. Springer instilled that in us, and after that, he let us do a little bit more running. But, man, he was a heck of a person, man, a heck of a person.
I think, William, you touch on something there, and that is the ability as a coach to kind of compromise at times and say, you know what, maybe we need to make a tweak, or maybe I need to make an adjustment and move away from the way that I design things because, and meet halfway, right, with the group itself. That ability to make adjustment, that ability to work with the group, how did that assist and carry you forward in your post-Southport playing career?
I think it helped out a lot, especially the things that he taught me from summer, like after the season. We had summer workouts, and adjusting from the summer workouts, from going, like I said, the 15 pass and layup to letting us play our game. So he had a couple plays for me when I played. It was a play called White, and I would come down and act like I was going to the box, and I'll pop out the three-point line, and he let me play my game. But I'll tell you this, after I left there, my career kind of excelled, my offensive ability excelled, and I give him all the credit for that, from the workouts, the things he showed me, the things he taught me, and being disciplined. He always got on me for not shooting enough. He thought I should shoot the ball a little bit more than what I did, but I played within his system, and his system was, try to get the open guy. If it wasn't going to me, it would go to Borland down low. But I tell you what, I learned a lot, not just from basketball. I learned a lot about God and Jesus Christ of Nazareth from Coach Springer.
William Moore is our guest. He was, of course, the star of that 1990 Final Four team for Southport. William, of course, playing for Bill Springer, who we're talking about now, the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame coach who passed away within the last week. You are and before we get to, because I do want to know about that 1990 game, because I was pretty much in awe of it, to be honest with you, what I saw in that game against B&L. But, William, you have a son that played basketball. You have obviously come back and found yourself living in Indiana. Your son played and finished at Cloverdale before going on and playing collegiately, I believe, at Oakland in the Horizon League. As a father, how did Coach Springer help you as a father? And maybe even understanding at times when you wanted your son to shoot more, shoot less, whatever it may be.
He was doing the right thing. He always stayed on me. If I messed up, or if any one of the teammates messed up, Coach Springer would be there to try to, I have to say, if you did something wrong, he's going to be there to discipline you. And he's going to tell you the right way to do something. And that's what I've instilled in my kids. It also came from my mother and my father also, and like my grandma. But Coach Springer was that person that he was there for you if you got in trouble, and he was there for you when you did good. And what I did to Jalen, which is my son you're talking about, he leaves this Saturday to go to Hungary and play. He's been playing overseas. But, when you got good people in your life and good motivators and good teachers and those who were there for you to help you out when things ain't going good, and that's one person I can lean on. That was Coach Springer. Things weren't going good, I can call him and talk to him, and I'll go over there and visit him and sit down with him. And we always had this good relationship with one another, and it propelled for me, and it went to my kids also.
One of the things, William Moore is our guest, that always jumped out at me about the game of basketball. And I don't know about you. I don't know if you played any games in the old Lawrence Central Gym, which is it looked like that little mini Astrodome on 56th Street. That was one of them that like that gym to me, my depth was always so – it was such a hard gym to shoot in because your depth perception was off because the wall wasn't the normal distance back from the goal. It was like playing outside, right? When you play outside, your depth gets off a little bit. And I was really fascinated by it in my junior year of high school when they moved the Final Four to the Dome. And you guys having to play in that because your depth perception was so off. But yet – you had probably as hot a half as anybody has seen in Indiana high school basketball Final Four history in that game against Bedford North Lawrence, where everything was going in. And I'm sure Bill Springer was telling you, keep shooting it, keep shooting it. What was it about that day where everything went your way, except for the end result, I realize?
Well, for one, we was used to playing in front of a big crowd. Not that big, of course, but, when we played at Southport, we kind of packed the gym, and especially my junior year, because we was ranked, I think we was ranked 5th my junior year. So we kind of, wherever we went, we drew a crowd. So going into the Final Four, we knew, actually, before sectional started, we seen that, I think it was 34,000 tickets were already sold. So our main goal was to try to get, to keep excelling in sectionals, regionals, because we never got out of regionals. My 3 years there, my sophomore and my junior year, we never got out of regionals. But we always went to Hinkle and played in the regionals, and it was like 17,000 at that game.
It was the best.
So when we seen it, it was 34,000 tickets already sold before when sectional started. Our goal was to get there. So once we got there, we went there in practice. I think the day or 2 days before the game. And you see how the seating was. But you know what, man? Something like that, that's where I excelled at. I was never nervous playing in front of a crowd. And my main thing was to go out and try to perform the best way I could do. So I had a pretty good first half. The second half, I went 1 for 11, which I don't know what happened. I was just missing. But it was a great experience. I think it was 42,000 at the game. And I think to this day – to this day, that record still stands to this day.
I want to say 23 in the first half. Am I wrong in that?
I think it was 23 in the first half. I think 5 in the second half. Yeah.
Do you feel like filing a restraining order on me because of the fact that I know off the top of my head you had 23 in the first half? You can be honest.
No, I'll tell you. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, I tell you, man, whenever I watch that game, because you can pull that game up on YouTube, I don't watch the second half at all.
It's a quicker watch, right? Now, in all honesty, I'm curious about this, William Moore. In Indiana, in high school basketball in particular, we take, we carry with us with such reverence those moments. And I'm always curious, and it varies from guy to guy, how much they carry those moments with them after the fact. You went on, as you mentioned, to playing in much bigger stages in the game of basketball. But how much does that game and maybe even that second half still stick with William Moore today?
It'll stick with me forever because that first half was unbelievable. I couldn't miss nothing. I was hitting everything. The crowd was in it. And I thought, I don't know, man, I thought we would beat Bedford, which was a good team. Damon Bailey, great player. And Coach Bush, great Hall of Fame coach. But, that's just something that, we lost. Only thing I can say is it was a fair game. We lost. But I think, that's just something, I don't care what level I played on, that right there, because I never played in front of that many people. And not only that, Indiana basketball is just the top of the top notch of all high school basketballs. I don't care what state you go to, Indiana and Kentucky, it's probably the 1-2 punch right there.
Especially in that era, no question about it. William, tomorrow Bill Springer will be laid to rest, but you did him proud. I appreciate the kind words about him. I did not know the man. I had great respect for him as a coach, and certainly now more so even that as a man of faith and a man and a leader. And your ability to illuminate that and open up for all of us what kind of guy he was is greatly appreciated. And certainly our condolences to you and the Southport family as well.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Go Cardinals.
There you go. William Moore, the star of the 1990 Southport Cardinal State Final Four team. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We will get you set up again for J&V is going to be up next, obviously, about 30 minutes from now. He is still putting up jumpers, I think, speaking of William Moore, but he's 1 for 11 in the last couple of minutes is John. But we will get you set up for John's broadcast from 3 until 4, and then Colts pregame from 4 until 6, because it's Colts-Ravens later tonight. We're at the Legends Golf Course down here in Franklin. It is Query and Company on the Fan. Eddie, I believe this is one of the bands that we gave away tickets recently, correct?
Yeah, Jimmy Eat World, yes.
It's a good song.
I forget who they were with. They were with somebody.
That is a good question. They were opening for someone recently, correct?
I don't know if they
away
were
tickets for that.
I don't know if they were opening or performing with.
Or like co-headlining, right? Yeah, that's fair. You mentioned Eddie Garrison as we are out here at the Legends Golf Course for the Fan Invitational Golf Outing today to benefit Franciscan Health and their foundation and cancer care. But you mentioned when William Moore came on just afterwards that his son that he referenced there in terms of getting ready to go play in Hungary is someone with which you shared Lunchables, correct?
We didn't share Lunchables, right? Jake, but yeah, Jalen went to Decatur. And then once, I think his parents moved to Cloverdale, he went to Cloverdale, I think, for high school.
Correct.
But yeah, he went to Decatur for a little bit. We lived in the same neck of the woods. And so growing up, when he was middle school and then elementary school, we rode the same bus together. And then Jalen's older brother, Marquise, was a senior when I was a freshman. So briefly knew both of them. Yeah, good people.
He was, I'm telling you, William Moore was a heck of a player, no question about it, and appreciated those words. It's interesting because, I reached out to my buddy Greg Simmons, who's also a Southport guy, and said, look, I'd like to get William or one of those members of the 90 team on to talk about Bill Springer when I saw that Bill Springer had passed. And William was the first guy I asked about. I'd never talked to William Moore and really enjoyed the aspect with which just, to go above and beyond talking about him in above and beyond just the basketball aspect of Bill Springer. So appreciate that conversation. Colts-Ravens tonight. That is, of course, the marquee matchup with which we will be discussing tomorrow. It goes without saying that the Fever will also get mentioned tomorrow with their game with Phoenix. Eddie will be on that, but I want to make this house-cleaning note. Eddie will have the pre- and post-game broadcast for that, but that game in terms of the Fever will air tonight on our sister station, 93 WIBC. That's because the Colts-Ravens game will be on the airwaves of 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan. So wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. The quarterback situation is the one that will get the most attention for tonight. And Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. And as we talked about, I don't know that you can – if there's a positive performance or an outstanding performance from either one of those two quarterbacks, I don't know necessarily that you read into that. As unfair as it is to say, it almost feels like a demerit would be the only thing that really would jump out and carry either one of these quarterbacks into the next game. So if they both come out and let's say, one goes 7 for 7 and has a touchdown, the other one comes out and goes 9 of 10 and has a touchdown with a fumble, whatever it may be, then I think you're still at square even. The only thing I think that would really be something that carries over is if one of the two of them just has a complete disastrous performance. And by that I mean accuracy, turnovers, lack of, just kind of understanding and cohesiveness. Because to a great extent, even some of the receivers you're talking about, if you look at the players with which the Colts this year are going to be leaning offensively, Tyler Warren is obviously one of them. That goes without saying. And A.D. Mitchell could well become one. And those are two guys that both of these quarterbacks, for the most part, could be unfamiliar with them in an integral part. I realize that Richardson had Mitchell a year ago, but at the same time, not the Mitchell that we may be seeing develop before our very eyes right now. And then Warren, it goes without saying, and I've said that phrase like 3 times, but Tyler Warren is one that is a safety net guy. I think, for example, at this Franciscan Foundation golf outing for the Fan and our golf outing today, I had to make some comments to everybody before they went out on the golf course. And I've mentioned before, my number one fear in life is public speaking. It terrifies me in front of groups. And one of the things that I always do when I have to do that is I find somebody in the crowd that I know and then, talk to them and hobnob with them beforehand. And then when I have to speak, I kind of look towards that person and I pray them. It's a safety net thing. And I think as a quarterback, you need that as a receiver. And that's what kind of – Michael Pittman's been that guy, but I think Tyler Warren can be that kind of guy as well where you just feel like at the quarterback position, if everything's breaking down around you, you've got that one person you can look at and then realize that everything might be okay. And I'm curious to see if Warren, how much they develop of that and how much he becomes that throughout the course of the year. We'll hand it off to JV next. He has been shooting shots all day, courtesy of the basketball goal from Ducks. We'll find out how he did with that and whether or not he was William Moore in the first half or William Moore in the second half. And we'll get you set up for Colts and Ravens. We'll do it all when we come back here to the Legends in Franklin. Back at the Legends Golf Course down in Franklin. It is the Fan Invitational Golf Outing. And certainly appreciate everybody that came out for it today. This is all to benefit the Franciscan Health Foundation and their cancer care program, which facilitates and provides the assistance both from an emotional standpoint, a financial standpoint, and goes without saying the compassion that we know from Franciscan. The Franciscan Health Foundation serving all of that, and they will benefit from the golf outing today. So thankful to everybody that has come out. We have silent auction items here as well. As those come off the links, they will get their awards and then also hopefully raise a lot of money in that regard. Now, I'm curious about this because JMV, I have three questions for JMV.
Sure.
The first is you were out there putting up shots and have been since about 11. And how did you shoot?
Great. Considering it was uneven terrain, a little bit of grass, a little bit of pavement.
Like Jimmy Chitwood.
I had to go out there and get my exactly. I had to go out there and get my ankle brace because my Achilles tendon was hurting a little bit. But
okay, secondly, I noticed you put on your basketball shoes, and if I'm not mistaken, on the tongue of it, it looks like there is a number 3. Is that a particular player shoe?
I don't know whose this was. This was kind of I don't know what this was. I just go for comfort. I don't know whose signature shoe this was.
Is that a late career Nuggets Iverson shoe?
It might be. I just know at the time they were really soft. I wore these when I was fat. So when I was a fat ass, I wore these when I was at 255, and they really made my feet feel better. So
what are you now, 185?
I'm 177 right now. I just bought a pair of basketball shoes. They're New Balance, and they're all pink. They're really comfortable, but I got a feeling they're Cameron Brink's signature shoe.
you know, if you're going to buy New Balances, you know who has great New Balance shoes is Aaron Nesmith.
Really?
That's what he wears. They're blue and yellow.
Well,
Aaron Nesmith's got a cool.
I tried to get through the Pacers. Didn't get any response. I did from Chad Buchanan, but I tried to get Siakam had a pair of shoes that were kind of this color, a little bit like this color that he wore, and I think they weren't a signature shoe, but they was especially designed for him, and I tried to get those because they look comfortable. But, of course, much like Pacer Sports Entertainment, I didn't hear back from him.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
You didn't expect to hear from Pascal directly, right?
No. I thought, man, those things look comfortable. But, they're not as bad as the Fever, though. The Fever are the ones I can't get with. For some reason, they don't call me back for nothing.
Really?
Weird. It's a good thing you got that relationship with Stephanie White. That's really good.
You know what?
She's cool.
I don't know.
And I'll give her credit because she comes on every week. You know how awesome that is? That is well done out of you.
It is. She's, obviously a good conversation, a fun conversation.
I've got a little bit of an axe to grind, as you can tell.
Anybody else you want to
rip on here, too? Yeah. Well, there's this guy from Brown County that said he could outshoot me. Of course, I didn't lose today out there, but he said he could outshoot me. And I said, hey, clown, bring your ass up here. I'm here right now. All right, you can prove it if you can, or you won't right now.
No show?
No show.
Yeah.
Said he's in Brown County. That's only a county away, brother. Come on.
Without saying.
Get on the road.
Okay, my other question for you is I noticed for your broadcast they've got you a tent set up, and while it's that would have been fine, I want to know why not over here where the rest of us
I don't know. I'm going inside, I think.
You are?
I think that's where they're having the dinner afterwards.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
So I think I'm going to be a part of that, too.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I'm doing Colts.
Well, I was going to say, your
huddle.
Expectation for tonight, or the thing that you are most curious to see between the Colts and the Ravens?
Man, I want to see Strider putting this weird, right? Place kicker stuff. I want to see him put in some situations. I do. It
does feel like he that is his job to lose.
I want to see the Anthony Richardson reaction for his workload in comparison to what he does, and if there's even. Because I've said all along he's going to start the season, and I still believe he's going to start the season. But I'm kind of going to be curious to see with the Colts fans how everybody sees it. Younger generationally speaking, they view him, I think, at a much higher level than some of us curmudgeons do, who have been around actual good quarterbacks and good football players before. So,
well, again, it's like anything else, John. It's like out here on the golf course.
Yeah.
You hit a couple shots on the golf course that makes you feel like all of a sudden you're like, well, this is, man, I figured this out. And then, boom, you hit one errant shot, and you're like,
I hope that it works. I just don't know if we're going to find out if it does tonight.
No, I think
there are some people out there expecting.
I don't think we're going to know whether or not it works until
the season.
Until you and I are sitting up there watching it for real, right?
Those first two games are so big, Like you look at the magnitude of some of these early games. Their first true games are big. Dolphins, Broncos.
Yep.
You look at IU, that first Big Ten matchup against Illinois, huge. I mean, there are some high magnitude games that are coming up in football at the very beginning of the season. So that's going to test everybody who believes that my must-win situations, especially early in the season, are inaccurate, because some of these are going to be.
So you got us till 4, and then it is Colts pregame after that, right?
Yes, and I did not lose today.
All right.
There was no losing going on over there.
There you go.
We raised some money, and that was great. Hey, thanks to your friends at Franciscan for being out here. This was awesome.
It was a great event.
From Zinc to Heaven Hill Distillery. My guys Chris and Carlton from Ducks of Noblesville that brought the basketball goal
Cart
out
was
there.
out here as well.
Yes.
Thomas. Saw Thomas earlier,
Thomas,
right?
Premier Weight Loss, was out there. So I know more people. I know our Twin Peaks people were out there. I saw Paul and Emil on the course, too. Great folks.
A lot of fun. And John
Ted
will
Bishop
continue the
Ted
fun.
Bishop, too, from
Great
the Legends.
host.
Yeah.
Great host, no question about it. Fabulous course. John will be up next. He will carry you until 4 o'clock, and then it is Colts pregame with the Baltimore Ravens. The matchup tonight, we'll talk about it all tomorrow, and I thank you for listening to Query & Company.